This conference will now be recorded.
Here. Ms. Solomon. Mr. Jensen. Here. Ms. O'Connell.
Here.
Mr. Kish.
Here.
Sir, you have a quorum. And also in attendance is Nancy Dudak, who is Assistant District Manager with us. And I won't be here the next meeting. I'm taking a vacation. Anyhow, Nancy, I'll handle you.
God help you.
We'll make this one look easy.
We'll make this look like.
You don't normally see me, but I'm always here in the back.
Nancy, really, they're all easy.
Yeah, there he is. Wow, he's got a full house. 30 and everything.
Yeah, let's take a picture. Oh. That's right.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You've got the agenda before you, and we've added 13B, which is a request from a resident to plant 3 palm trees in the right of way before he builds his new home. Okay. The other additions to the agenda?
I would like to discuss, where the boat docks go in Stella Mars North,
Okay.
the swale, our application.
Well, we do
You
have,
have something there?
yes, it is the, it says parking, but it's still that same area.
Yeah, it's in that area.
What did we have?
But we're looking at the road.
That underneath my engineer's report, that's convenient.
Let's just add it, so the drainage of.
Yeah, we don't bring it up. I'll do it at,
Well, let's just put in there names here as 9 or 8E. And it'll be Stella Maris North drainage. Is that it? Okay, anything else? Okay, then we would need a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
So moved.
my second.
All in favor? That audience comments on agenda item. Are there any? Okay, seeing none, that takes us to the minutes, and you have draft meeting minutes for April 9th, 2021. Any corrections, additions, changes? Yes, sir.
Just one, if I may, on page 5, the third line from the bottom, change 71 to 1975. Probably because I was talking.
Oh, so you haven't lived here since 70?
Since 75. I was still in law school in 70.
Any other?
Same page 5, number item 20, first line, just a grammar thing. Who he works with, is that what you meant to say? Or who works with, within,
Yeah,
within.
who works with?
So take out the he and put
And
with,
him.
within, yeah, put within as one word.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay, yeah, that sounds much better. Any others? Then take a motion to approve the minutes as amended.
I made that motion to approve the amended minutes.
My second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Will take us to Mr. Soto.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
Did my drive around with
Mr. Ray Denson this time. Michelle wasn't available, but I was able to do it for your board members here. And we actually drove around the entire property, so he knows it very well. And
Do you want to ride with them again?
Oh, yeah. Why next time I'm driving?
we found in the issue with the entrance of Union Road, it actually wasn't caused by the fiber optic guys. Some work that was done by electrical, by electrician, they dig the wire, wherever it drag it, splice it. It's taken care of, it's up and running. All the fiber optic that was done in the property, there was no damages caused by them. The area that I had been concerned, we did bore underneath, and we did run under. I thought they were going to go across. They didn't, actually bored and did not damage anything within our irrigation system, so we're good on that. Sorry to bring that up to you guys. We did remove the big canary palm that was infected with Ganoderma. It's been removed and gone. There is a lot of appearances of Ganoderma throughout the property, and for any homeowners in here or what in general, we need to get rid of them because it does spread. I'm removing 2 today behind the pole here that have that, and anything to do with green palms, canaries, they're very susceptible. And, it's kind of sad, but it's actually throughout the neighborhoods and a lot of our properties. And there is a lot of it going on, but to help everything out is immediately remove one identify. Don't let it sit or wait for the palm because it's an airborne disease that goes around. It jumps from palm to palm. There's some palm trees that are more susceptible to it. There's some that are a little bit more hardy. But, the weak ones are your queens, canaries, and they're very expensive palms. So if anybody sees them or, just identify it, report it, we can remove it. So,
Can I ask Robert a question? What should we look for?
It's actually Ganoderma. It looks like a mushroom on the base bottom of the tree. And it's hard to see it. Some of these, some of the palms are wrapped around with shrubbery. And really got to see in there to make sure that it's not growing. It looks like a brown, whitish looking mushroom. It's a really bad disease. There's no cure. There's nothing you can do. You have to. It's been around for a long time.
Closer to the microphone.
Sure. It's been around for a long time. And, I just, you see it, immediately try to take care of it because it does spread. We identified 2 here last week and we're removing them today. So, it is in the community. Okay. The guys are gonna, I showed Steve in the very back of the retention area next to the gun club. I'm gonna cut the swell down and all that along the berm side. On the inside, the retention area, the overflow retention area for the water plant? For the water plant. So I'm gonna have that done before we really get into the rainy season. I'm gonna get my last application of fertilizer before we come into the blackout, for non-fertilization, during summer. We can still do other stuff, but it's, it's not the same. It's getting hard to regular now. So, but the tree trimming, I did have somebody called our office and had a concern on a tree down in Newport. I think it's an RV that lives down in the back area. They said that they're scratching their RV, so I'm gonna push this a little sooner than later. I'm gonna see if I can try to fit it in at the end of the month, or if not, the first week of June. And that's the estimate that was approved. So, but other than that, I mean, it's pretty basic in general. So that's it.
I'd like to make a comment if I may. When I was riding along with Robert, and I think this speaks to Robert, I had asked him about a flood up along Union Road that had occurred from a line getting broken that you may remember we talked about in a meeting. We thought it was at the old hotel. And 2 things came to mind. Number one, Mitch called me the next morning and goes, "We found it." I said, "How'd you find it?" He goes, "Oh, it's over in the middle. It's an irrigation line." And I said, "You found it in there?" And he goes, "Yeah, it's all fixed, the whole thing." And I'm bringing that up because when I rode around with Robert, we were talking about that. And he goes, "Oh, yeah, well, that's got a meter on it." And he whips off the road into the brush in his truck, and we're in thick brush over here. And he goes, "There's the meter." And I said, "What the hell are you looking at?" And I actually had to look, and the meter was in the thicket, sitting right there. Okay? What is that worth? Are you kidding me? Those two guys fixed that problem. I mean, they both knew where it was. You couldn't even see it with the naked eye. It's crazy. So that's impressive.
There is a line back there that goes
Yeah.
across. It's been there for a long time. We found the hard, we had to learn the hard way, right? That's hard. But we found it. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you, Ray, for that day. And, nothing, no new estimates for right now, but we will continue to do the approved estimates. So, all right. Thank you. Have a good weekend.
Thank you. All right, Mitch, you're up.
Well, good morning, everyone. Nothing much exciting going on back at the utility, water plant, everything's running good, we're making great water. The flows are down this month. I asked the girls in my office why, I went and checked with the operator, I went and verified the numbers myself, they're down. I don't know why, but you guys seem to use less water right now.
No people.
Maybe that's it.
Oh, that's it.
The wastewater plant is running fine, making good water. I think it was on the last month's list of stuff that we fixed, the air compressor and the floating aerator, those are done. The fire station, we installed the VFD. The lift stations are all running fine. We did have one this week that there was a problem with, but, or it actually was last week. My guys came out and took care of it. It was just a plugged up pump. Somebody get flushing stuff down the toilet they shouldn't have. The reuse system back there, the pumps are working good, but there is a problem with the PLC failed that tells the reuse tanks to fill. So I had the SCADA people come out and look at it. And of course, it's an old, outdated, it was installed new in 08 when everything was done. And then it was the best of the best, but now it's 13 years old and it's no longer made or supported. So they're looking at options for us to replace that. And as soon as they figure that out, we'll get it taken care of. Until then, we're just manually filling the tanks. And we have the ability to log on remotely and look at everything. So it's never an issue. Distribution, we started the meter installs and it's way, way, way slower than I had anticipated. We're physically having to dig up every meter box because the discharge side of the meters, they didn't put a nipple, so they hard piped off the meter, and the meters are all the way going into the box. So we knew that area was going to be the hardest, and we started at the hardest end, but it's going way, way slower. So for me to be done in June, I don't think I will. I think it's going to be more like August before I'm finished the end of August.
So you have to cut everyone.
So we physically take a shovel and dig the whole meter box out, take it out, cut the line, unscrew it, unhook it from the front, put the new one in, reconnect the pipe, and move the meter box back a little bit. So we're just going really slow. So I'm going to be a couple of months longer than I had anticipated. So it's getting better every day. Like today, I think we're going to do about 25. Yesterday, we did 16. The day before that, 10. There was one day we did 4. So, but anyway, that's on me. I told Cal that we will honor the price we gave. We gave a price per meter, so that will stay the same. But again, we are going to be a little longer than I anticipated.
I've been a little concerned and sent Mitch an email, said, hey, at this case, it's going to be 3 years.
Well, I with a whole bunch of exclamation points. So and he's correct. I mean, it is slow, but I promise you, we're working fast. We're correcting it as we go. That way, it's done.
Has anybody done a comparison yet?
From one to the
Meter
next?
to the old meter?
No, we did do some readings this week just to see, but I haven't spoken to the girls in the office to compare those. It was just the first set of readings. But by the next board meeting, I should have some comparisons for you. Although I do know that there's more water usage, that I'm 100% sure of. So we're going to see some
I'm
increase in bills.
still last on the list then.
Yours was the first one. If you go out in the yard, you'll see your meter box has been dug up.
And keep in mind, 1 meter, we're not going to be able to develop a general summary of everything.
No, what I'm
It'll
looking
be
for is,
meter by meter.
Right.
if it's up or if it's down.
But if we can compare one residence, not mine, one residence and just 3 residents and get a feel what might be coming at us.
As he puts them online, we'll be able to determine that. We'll just look at the history and see how that compares. We can do it with everyone, but everyone's going to be different. I mean, we have some people
Right,
that
but if you
were
can get a statistical sample.
$800 bills for water, residential properties. It's, you know, the meters were horrible.
Yeah, but I think if you randomly select some, you could just get a feel. That's all I want. I'm not gonna hold it in stone. I just-
Yeah, we could look at them, once we start getting readings off of them and say, it appears like, most of them are up or most of them are down, or, you know, the general is equal. It's, you know, we can give you a general statement. But when you say, but it's gonna vary property by
Yeah,
property.
because I don't think any of us really know what to expect.
Right. Well, we're anticipating an increase, so, but at least it'll be accurate. We're not gonna get these spikes where, you know, it's $800 or $900 water bills that we're scratching our heads trying to figure out what happened.
Can you see all of them when they're all connected? Do you have a way to see all of
Yes,
them?
as you drive down the road, there's a map of every house. In every house has a red dot. As you drive by, you see these, ding, 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 and it's, every time it reads, it turns green.
So it doesn't create a trend report for us, right? Can you do
It probably does.
Yeah.
I think it would.
That would be nice.
Yeah.
You know, after it's all in its place.
Yeah, well, and the other advantage is something that Ron talked about all the time, and it was lost water. So we should be able to determine from what Mitch is putting into the system and what we're billing, and have a much higher comfort level of, you know, what's the lost water. There's always gonna be lost water, but, you know, right now it's pretty high.
That's what Terry cries about all the time. It's leaking someplace. It can't be my house.
Mitch, we were told that there's going to be some advantages to the meter and the fact that they'll be able to, trends and things like that. Will individual associations, I'm the one with the Southwest ran a slight problem this past week. Is there any way that we can log into that as an association to look at that type?
I don't think so, but I think that with the approval from you guys, I think that if you call our office, we can supply that.
Yeah.
It's only a phone call away.
Okay.
How do I know you won't hack our system?
Yeah, well, we'd love to.
If you're looking for a history of consumption, you know, we could go back for probably 4 years.
Well, ours was just a specific
Did you
problem.
find the problem?
Oh, yeah, it was the master control valve.
See, there is a problem. Usually there's a problem.
No, it was the master control. Our water, a long story, but we changed board of directors, et cetera, and a bill didn't get paid, and one of them was the water bill. And lo and behold, we found out we had $2,000 water bill when we have normally like a couple $100 water. And ended up being, we had a master control valve that was not turning off at the end. And so we finally, $4,000 later, narrowed that down. That's why we would like to be able to, so we can make sure that that doesn't happen again.
Sure.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Mitch, but the meters themselves have the ability, if it's noticing constant water flow through that meter, it sends you a message that there's a
Well,
fault.
when we go through and read it, so we're gonna, even though you'll only be billed every other month still, we're gonna read more often. So if we come through and read, it'll show a high usage. So I can reach out to you and say, hey, we see for the last 7 days, your water is up 80%. You may want to go look.
And that would be wonderful. You can go back and look for spikes.
We can go back and find the day that it started and be able to say, hey, the valve, it actually fell at 2 a.m. on this day.
And we could continue to have our water bill every 2 months.
Yes. So, okay, it was a cost savings effort that we did.
Yeah.
It can be sort of monthly, but it is gonna cost more. I mean, I don't think it'll cost Mitch more, but, you know, we're to prepare bills monthly as opposed to every 2 months. I've got to add staff, I've got postage.
How they go vacation?
Yeah, sounds like no vacation. Anything else for Mitch?
So you really can't explain how we're over 50% down versus last year.
I knew you were gonna ask, so I purposely, when I seen this, I purposely went to my girls in the office and said, there has to be a mistake. They said, no. So I went to the operator, said, is there a mistake? Said, no. So I walked with him, we read every meter, watched the flow. There is no mistake down.
Because it's been so dry. I had to fill my pool like 3 or 4 times. It's just evaporating off. So I mean, I'm using more.
I mean, we're the lowest we've been in a year.
The Stellar would like to have his meter.
Yeah, but you were talking about the reduction is in potable water.
In potable.
That's irrigation.
I don't use irrigation water in my pool.
Oh.
No,
No, you definitely don't want to do that.
No, that's a big
That's
Could
what
it be
I'm-
the hotel, I mean, could the hotel represent that much consumption? I can't imagine that. 50%.
about 50%, but I would say they use a
The
lot.
hotel's been empty a lot.
Yeah.
That could be.
I mean, that's gotta be a piece of it.
I think they were actually closed for.
Yeah. I mean, it could be a chunk of it, plus a lot of people left early, left at Easter, you know, so I mean, there are drops there.
But they do every year.
Yeah, well, that's true, that's relative.
Well, but the thing is the number of voters.
Yeah.
Registered here is almost 3 times what it was 10 years ago.
Right.
So we have more people staying year round, or at least a period of staying.
Quick funny story, the potable, not potable, the property manager, I think it was Stellar North, was concerned because, or what the resident, the president was concerned because the property manager said that the faucets at the boat docks was non-potable. It was irrigation water. He said, you mean I've been cleaning my fish with, you know, sewer water? No, that can't be true. And Mitch spent several days at it. We've gone through all the records. I mean, we put a couple hours or a couple days in just trying to determine and verify that that was.
I was doing my stomach, actually.
Oh, yeah.
I dug it up myself. I physically dug it up to see that it wasn't that way.
So, yeah, that was just recently. Anyhow, anything else, Mitch? Anything for Mitch? Okay, David, you're up.
All right, good. New home construction and drainage issues, that's an ongoing thing with the construction that's going on right now. There's so many new homes being built right now. And then there is one actually that has been filed out since last fall. What I'm going to try to do in the next week or so is try to get down here, visit each of the houses under construction, develop that list, and make sure that on a regular basis, every 2, 3, 4 weeks, I come down here, just make sure where we're at with the status of it. And then try to work with the builders first, we're going to close out all the lot drainage and also the repair to the sidewalk and any kind of valley gutter and so forth that may get damaged during the
Yeah,
construction.
this month I asked, because I was curious, I've never seen it before, but steps going down into the culvert.
Into the swales?
Occupied now, yeah.
Yeah. The
I
key
thought
is
that was
to,
so odd.
yeah, the idea is to keep as many, if not all, of encroachments out of those swales and so forth.
Yeah.
There are some instances where we, just because of the way, especially down in the case, how those easements are set up back there, it's kind
Well,
of
this is
unique.
like right to the edge. I don't think it's going to impact the flow of water. I just thought it was odd to have stairs going down.
So many of them, we'll talk about it with Stella Mars, is a lot of people build the little walkways over the swales to reach their seawall or their boat docks and so forth.
But people build them.
Yeah, people build those. And that's something we'll discuss as we get into the dark drainage and so forth.
Not too long ago, we went through and had the property owners remove everything that they put in the swale, you know, bricks, any type of visual or aesthetic enhancements, plantings.
So, but the bridges, we did, they COVID last.
And that's something that I'm seeing in my mind is as we go into next year, a lot of that construction is going to be finishing up. Most of the lots are going to be gone here for the islands. And that's the time when we need to do a comprehensive look at those rear yard swales, look at what we need to do to go ahead and get them back to their original condition or as close as we can so that we keep that drainage working.
And that would be our responsibility.
Yes, yes. Some of the encroachments, it may come down to telling the property owners, either you remove it or we'll remove it, that type of situation.
Hopefully, I'd like to see that done before the house gets finished, if it's new
If it's
construction.
new construction, yeah, try to be proactive with those. But the existing ones, over time, of course, swales fill in. And people kind of grow into the swales. So on item B, the Route 41 fiber optic, Robert mentioned before that the issue we thought we had with their installation didn't really exist. It was another issue. So I had made contact with the folks that had been doing that work out on 41, and they were very receptive to going ahead and taking care of any kind of damages. So, but I'll let them know that everything's okay.
Do we know what they're doing?
Yeah.
Do we know who? Well,
The subcontractor.
I'm trying to remember, it's the company that actually is doing the install is something called I2 Solutions, but they're working for the cable company, basically.
Which cable company?
That's what I meant.
The reason we ask is it CenturyLink or is it Comcast?
Might be AdCom, we're getting AdCom put in Newport for DirecTV. AdCom is our MDU.
And it's fiber optic that's coming into you?
Well, we can't figure out where they ran a line up here.
I don't know. I know that it's AdCom, but I can see.
No, you have Comcast though.
Yeah, we have Comcast.
Yeah, this is different. This is.
I thought Amazon was satellite.
It is, but they said they had to run some cables. I don't want to think about that stuff.
What did you get?
I don't think it's, I think they're a satellite cable.
I had the name, but that's the one file I probably didn't bring with me that I thought I might need. I can look into that and get some more information on who actually is the cable person.
Do you know how far they're going? Is it all the way down?
Looks like they're going all the way into Naples.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how much further out they're going. I haven't drove out that way. But yeah, they're quite extensive. Work.
I just, as I said, I think we're all surprised that we never got any notification that that they were coming here and going to be, running cables through our land without telling the local community that, hey, we're going to be using it. But it's just like, surprise.
Well, I think for the most part, most of their facilities are going in the US 41 right away. Right. Plus there is an easement, it does go up to the cell tower, so they felt like they were covered.
But they could have told us.
Yeah, they could have told us that.
Courtesy would have been nice, yes.
Is this the same firm that they did talk to us 2 years ago?
That I'm not sure about.
Remember you guys had me do locates like a year and a half ago,
Yeah.
and it was for,
The same company?
I do.
it was for running fiber optics to that cell phone tower. I remember that.
Oh, there it is. But that was 2 years ago, and we thought they were gonna do it right then, and,
Yeah, but COVID happened in between there.
Yeah.
Wheels of progress.
Things don't move fast at times.
That would make sense.
Okay. Let's see, next thing on here is the pothole roadway repairs on Stella Maris. And I believe you got a copy of the report there. We took a look there and actually did a little survey, took a look at what the fall was between, it's a unique situation. The roadways themselves have what's called an inverted crown, that it comes from the side into the middle, then it drains down the middle to catch basins and then out to the retention detention areas. So it's a little bit unique. And right now what's happening is the slope itself is so fine, we're getting some ponding as it goes towards the catch basins themselves. And of course, when you got ponding water, that causes increased deterioration of the asphalt and pavement. So we took a look at that. We put together some numbers, and I think they are high, but I'd rather give you a high number than a low number, and then we have to go looking for money later. We can go in there and do basically the bill and replace as is. And we were guessing the budget cost here was probably going to be about 55,000. The other option would be to go in and put a hard valley gutter in there, a concrete valley gutter. What's nice about that is you can set the grades a little bit better on the concrete than what you can pave to with asphalt. So then we would pave down to the sides of the valley gutter, get a good grade. Valley gutter would then move the water to the catch basins. And if we did have a little minor ponding in the concrete valley gutter, the concrete's going to take that a lot better than with the asphalt. And then
What comes to mind with me with that is look at Stella Mars South. They filled in that.
right there at the roadway entrance.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
that was to
was a
get rid of
problem
that.
there. Yeah.
Really, maybe what should have happened there would have been doing what's called a modified valley gutter there, that instead of it being 2 foot wide, you make it 3 foot wide. And that's what we can do here at Stella Parsons too, is we can make that a little bit wider and more comfortable. I wish I would have brought some pictures that we're working in a community up in Dartmouth County doing water main replacement of all things, but it's a similar situation, inverted crown, and they for years had these valley gutters in the middle of the driveway, and they've even added to it more recently, and it works very well for them. So again, the other thing we could do is a little bit more modification by the catch basins themselves to kind of smooth that area out. That's a little bit more money. But if you're wanting to do something right now, I think the big thing is to think whether we want to do alternate one, which is just pave it back the way it is, or go in and put the valley gutter in. Those are the two major decisions.
This was turned over to us, what did it say, 2005?
That sounds about right. And then if we want to,
It was after that. No, didn't they say 2014? It might have been. That's what Chunky said, right?
So 6 years and repaving, so, I'm leery about just repaving.
when was it originally built though? So it's,
Yeah, it was 2005 was originally built, but it was not turned over to the CID until 2014.
so it's at 20 years of life, plus or minus.
Yeah.
What about the agreement that we looked at, we saw it last time, concerning about the repavement as far as the drainage portion was never turned over to the CID, my understanding?
That's correct.
So my question would be, if we would go to like alternate B, which would be to redo the drainage portion as well as redoing the macadam, would there not be expense to Stella Maris North for the drainage portion of it as compared to us paying the whole thing?
Wasn't that drainage underground, not on top?
The drainage to the catch basins from the roadway is overland. Then when it gets to the catch basins, then there's a series of culvert pipes that take it to the retention areas.
Yeah. I thought it was just the pipe underground that they were responsible for.
I think that's up to interpretation a little bit, with the way they
The
set up.
basin itself, that structure that collects it, I would think that's part of the drainage system. It's not the roadway. I mean, think of the roadway dry, but
That's the question I have, which is, is there some responsibility to Stella Maris North if we should want to go alternate B to try to fix the drainage issue as well? Or do we just paper over, everything and say, yeah, it looks good now, but we didn't really address the drainage issue? And that's the question I guess we would legally need to look at in that agreement to find out if there would be some expense to Stella Maris North if we should do this.
At the last meeting, we voted on something with that. And my question is, my understanding was Mr. Truckee and Mr. Lee came up with a file and they said they had documentation that we took over the whole thing. The bottom argument was, and I don't know the answer to this, the bottom line was, isn't every other road we do everything. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And is that the Stella Maris North is the only one that we don't do everything? Is that correct? And they were feeling that was unfair, which kind of is.
But it is.
Yeah, for some reason, we accepted the responsibility for everything but the drainage in that one community.
That was on Ron's recommendation.
And I think that was because the condos there were draining that way.
Yeah, it wasn't properly done when the developer put that property in. And so because of the problems it was creating, Ron recommended not accepting, go ahead. And the CID only got involved because of the utility system.
Yes.
And, there was a problem, it was a failure or something, either water or sewer. And so we said, okay, it's not private property, but if you turn it over to the CID, then we'll accept it as part of the system, which was like the rest of the community. And they said, well, how about like some of the other areas, you just take the water, sewer, road, everything. Then Ron came back with, he said, now there's some real issues with the drainage system, and you shouldn't take that. So that's why the agreement was drawn up the way it was.
Yeah, the including of a valley gutter in there would definitely extend the life of the pavement, which would be in your favor. Yeah, save you over the long run money.
Is there a way to break that out so that we would say,
Yes.
yeah, it would
looks like
be,
it's
it would be X number of dollars to Stella Maris North if the legal documents do say that that would be their responsibility and X number of dollars to the CID.
Yeah. And an option, I think, what you're suggesting, is that they draw plans for bidding. And we'll break it out into sections. We'll do the pavement and we'll also have the drainage. But I think that you need to look at the total drainage so that you can recommend back to the board. Because I don't think it was just the basin. I think it was on the discharge point also that Ron had concerns. But talk to Ron and find out what the concerns are. And I think it might have been a fear of damaging the docks. That if that's an underground pipe, could it damage the docks? And he didn't think we should accept that responsibility. I'm not sure.
We may want to, I'll talk with Rob, but we may want to revisit that a little bit as far as how far, if you're going to take any kind of drainage draw, how far will you take it to and which point will they be responsible for?
Did you change your mind about the monument idea or the rotary idea?
We took a look at that and we would have issues with trying to eliminate that. They do use it for parking around the perimeter. So the fire department would not be able to turn their trucks around in that circle. So, yeah, good thought, but it won't work in this case.
And then the agreement we have with them, can we have the attorney review it?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I mean, it's already recorded and accepted, so. Knowing Tony, he'd probably say it's horrible, and, there's all these things. And being a good attorney that you are, so.
Where does that road drain now? It's drained south, this is draining.
I think it drains to the canal.
Well, actually what happens with that system is it's got the ability to drain to that retention area that sits to the north of their buildings. It's a little bit east of the cul-de-sac that's there. Then it also drains back to the south, to that as well. It's on the backside of the seawall. And if I remember correctly, so
I have that site plan, if you'd like to see it, sir.
okay, yeah, I think there's two discharge points, I think, into the canal.
Do you see them on there?
May I approach?
Sure.
Yeah, and I think that seawall was made higher.
Yeah, there's actually two discharge points. So it's got, it drains.
The water comes down Stella Maris Drive to the west from midpoint. From midpoint, it goes east. Exactly what happens pretty much in the rear areas, which I'd like to talk to you about later if I may. But the water used to flow over this seawall, and you all know about the seawall, and that's another discussion. Water off the front of 2700, the building here on the cul-de-sac, it comes to this drain, and that drain goes underground over to this retention pond. The drain in the center of Stella Maris Drive north here also goes underground over to the retention pond, as does this one. There are 3 feeders coming in to this one behind those 2 buildings off the water. On the other hand, everything from here west in the rear drains down to this drain to this corner that I'd like to talk about. Everything off here drains in that direction.
Plus, now that the seawall has been raised 18 inches, all the water that comes down the street comes here. And like I say, I'd like to
There's
discuss
another
it.
discharge point right here also.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
The water that comes,
Right here, right
the
here.
water that comes from here goes this way, and the water, if there's an overflow here, comes this way and comes into a retention pond, a swale, and there is another pipe into the canal.
So there's 2 discharge points.
Yes, sir.
So,
Does that fill up, that retention pond? I've never noticed it. I guess.
I never knew it was there either.
I guess
Does
we
it fill
can't
up?
see it.
Well, it's something you wouldn't notice unless you actually drove over here,
Right.
and it's basically dry this time of year.
Even
The
in the
one-
summer.
About the summer,
It's,
it's overflow.
it's got about 6 to 8 inches in the summertime.
Pretty
It
much all the
rains,
time.
it rains quickly. Oh, saturates.
it does dry down, go back to a dry condition though after rain.
Yes, for the most part, but not in the rainy season, because if you watch over the summer, they can't cut the grass because, you know,
Oh, yeah.
It's too damn to get in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Same
Some of
with
the
the-
district's stormwater management system, or is that private?
That's private, that's all private. You know, that's the question today is, how much of that drainage system do you have any responsibility of any part?
Well, it doesn't sound like it. I don't think the agreement says that you accepted that responsibility. So we can get bids or estimates, he can analyze it, come back with either bids or just plans for bidding. And then we could talk to Stella Maris North and say, you know, we're gonna pave it, but if you want to address the drainage issues, then you should do this. This is your share. Does that sound like a plan?
Well, it seems to me that we need to consider sharing the cost because in the long run, we're going to save money with the paving if it lasts longer, so. I think-
Sure.
It might be a compromise there.
Yeah.
Negotiation.
Well, let's find out what the costs are on both.
Yeah, but my concern is, I missed it at the last meeting, to go and say we're gonna do it without proposals or knowing the cost is really putting us out on the limb.
We were on a limb, but I think what Mr. Truckee said and Mr. Lee said was they had the documentation that said that in 2014, we were gonna do it all. Now, we never got into it. Then it became a handshaker with Dan Cox and with Ron on site. And then it just kind of dissolved. But I think what we voted on was the fact that everybody else's street is covered by the CID, that one isn't. So that's, we need clarification on for him.
Well,
That's why that agreement was made.
and what he's got,
because it-
you're right, and that agreement is what's in place. That's what both sides have agreed on. And so if, you need to know the concerns Ron had as far as the liability, if you're thinking of accepting the drainage also. Going back, amending, you'd have to amend the agreement to include that. And go into it with your eyes wide open.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
that's all I'm saying.
Yeah, that's what we're looking for.
Okay, so,
Did the same developer develop that whole thing, or was that last phase that was on the north side? Was that a different developer?
It's the same one, Ferguson,
So Ferguson developed all that.
Richard Ferguson.
In north and south?
Yes, sir. Well, I can't tell you for sure about the south. He did all of the 10 units that are in Village of Stellar. As you know, that's the 10 buildings.
What I can tell from the records is it was broken out into 3 phases. There was a phase 1, which was the south portion. And the phase 2 was actually some stuff that faces Case Drive. And the third phase was the other.
So he built it up.
Yeah, he kind of built it out. A couple different engineers involved at different times with the site development planning and approvals and so forth.
So we need to get proposals.
Yeah.
Like,
you
exactly.
want to make a motion to authorize the engineer to analyze the conditions and further analyze the drainage, basically done because he did, you notice he did the corings, he knows what you underneath, and then develop bidding documents for both phases. So move. So move.
A second.
Any discussion?
One,
Go ahead.
one thing, all right, if we're gonna go that far, I would also like the legal interpretation of that agreement we're in. Because if we are going to split the cost in any way, I'd like to know what cost belongs to that agreement. And if we're going to split some of it.
Well, that would
Which
be the
helps with
drainage
this
that he's
proposal.
pulling
Yeah.
out.
Okay.
Because right now, unless you amend the agreement, they're responsible for all of the drainage. Now, Ms. Holloway has suggested that it's a shared responsibility because it impacts the condition or the likelihood of your asphalt, which is true. And maybe you could come up with an agreement with them separately that says, we'll pay half, you pay half.
Well, we won't know until
Right.
See the
we get,
cost.
until we get this and know
Yeah.
exactly, because let's face it, I mean, they're, finishing up a multi-million-dollar project, and, it's going to be tougher for them, but doesn't mean that we have to go what's legally right for everybody.
Right. But a good suggestion, and Tony can look at the current agreement, I'll send over to you, Tony.
Thank you.
Okay, wait.
Sir, do you know when the dock job's gonna be done, when they're out of there?
I wish I had a hard answer for you.
Yes.
Yeah. I know it's soon, too.
Soon we're going to shoot them.
Yeah.
Simple problem, 50 cents per bullet. It's okay.
They do have the water completed, I like that. And the electric is being done as a.
That's your only holdup, my understanding, yes, right?
It looks like most of the major work's done. It's just the clean up and the electric, so forth
Needs
to
to
the
be-
The electric seems to be the problem right now, as I understand.
Yeah, so I heard that.
I'm just looking at the heavy equipment going in and out, some pretty big trucks,
They're
in and out.
Okay, I think Russ has-
They're all done.
I still have a question. Okay, so Ron didn't like drainage.
Let me get into finding out what he didn't like.
Yeah, because I don't understand, I understand the road sucks, okay? But is the rest of the drainage solid?
But did you hear what they said? It drains over the old seawall.
Well, not anymore.
Well,
Now
it
it's bad.
used to, I haven't done any in-depth inspections of the area and so forth. One of the things is also there's no defined easements back there, if I remember correctly. It's a little bit loose as far as what the drainage easements are back there.
Because I just want to understand what the
And that's
total
what he's
issue
gonna
is.
come back to you. And the full analysis, Ron's still around, so he'll get Ron.
He's been in twice this week already.
If I might address your comment, please, sir. I have a picture I'd like to show you of where the water now drains down the street. Since the seawall has been raised and the water can no longer drain down the street and into the canal to the west. With your permission, I'll.
Yeah, let's look at it. Let's look at it. Now's the time.
This is the, well, thank you.
Did we have any rain this year that you could?
Not yet, but this is taken right behind my building. My name's Leroy Smith. I've lived here 15 years.
Okay, so this is going to drain to the south side.
That is right
Well,
here.
now-
This is the culvert right here.
Yeah.
And that wheelchair is right outside the door in this building. This is my building. I'm president of this building. There are 8 units, 4 up, 4 down. And these you can see the docks here, and you're looking across the water to the hotel. And this concrete drain into the canal through the seawall is what you see in the background there.
Right.
Prior to this, where was the drain?
It drained over, the water for the street, which he was asking about,
Yeah.
used to go over the seawall
The
and now it goes through it.
To the main canal or your
Goes-
canal?
And now it comes down,
No,
now
what
it
did
comes-
it used to do?
it used to, the water down the street used to go straight over the seawall.
It was
Into the
intended to, I think, to go to the water control structure, but something
Yes,
wasn't quite right.
That can't,
Well-
that can't, right.
It was never intended to overflow.
The way it's now
That's
built,
what it did.
the way it's just been done, my reason for coming to you today is I get all the water from behind this building, from this building, which is mine. I get all the water here, all the water here, and all the water down half the street into here. And they have excavated this swale area now to something so much different than what it was before. I don't mean to stand on top of you, but if you'll excuse my expression, the slope and the swale used to be sort of like this.
Yeah.
Like the reverse of a crown road, like you talked about.
Now it's.
And now it is like this, because they raised the seawall and they scooped it out. And I don't have an engineering degree, but we all know water goes downhill. I have a safety background. I was in law enforcement for 32 years. And for me, if I had this I consider that unsafe. And I would like to talk to you later about whether or not
When that fills up, where does it go?
it goes through that
Through this.
concrete culvert
Yeah.
into the canal.
Down here?
Into the canal.
There's two
It
places.
goes over here, comes right out here. Here's the marina over here. This is north, this is south.
Okay, so I thought that pipe that you were showing,
No, it's right there.
That picture you had shows right here.
Shows right here.
Structure right in
Yes, sir,
here.
that's correct.
And there's another structure.
Right here.
so how full does that get before it goes that way?
I'm sorry, sir.
How full does that get before it goes that way?
He doesn't know yet.
It doesn't have to get full. I haven't seen what's gonna happen yet.
It's too early.
Prior, a lot of that water went over the seawall. Now it came-
This water went over the
So they
seawall.
Yeah,
made
but
that
direct
cement.
access, so that wouldn't be, the EPA and everybody would have.
It was originally permitted not to go over the wall, but something over
With that range,
yeah, kind of damage to the
So,
seawall.
yeah, I just wondered how, because I didn't know if it was all supposed to percolate or if it was.
No, it's all supposed to come this way, but it doesn't have to be 4 or 5 feet deep to get the water to drain.
Except you're gonna have excess water
Well,
because it can't go over the seawall.
and
Where's it gonna go?
Well, the original stormwater design in here, and it shows a little bit on this table here, it was set up to give a certain degree of water quality and retention before it discharged to the canals.
Yeah.
So it builds up so high, and then when it hits a certain point, there's an overflow point where then it discharges.
What
in the
is that?
15 years I've lived there was never any standing water there at that period, unless it was permanent.
So, but you do have water in that back retention area on the north side.
Here.
So a lot of
Over
the
here.
water does go there, then it's held there for a while before it gets there.
Yeah,
So that's
correct.
good.
Correct.
That's good.
Now, sir, the dock people are the ones who made the V and the
Yes.
swale.
Florida Structural, the new
And they're the
contract.
ones that did that new concrete drain pipe through the new seawall.
They did not build any seawall.
When does that pipe go that we see there?
They put
That's
that
this one,
pipe
right here.
Yeah,
That's this, right
It
here.
goes directly into the.
but it dumps into the canal.
It dumps into the
Yeah.
canal.
But there's no new seawall over here?
This is all new seawall, all of
No,
it.
this, yeah, so it
Yeah,
goes
those have been
through the new
raised.
seawall, right?
This
Did
is
they
all-
replace
yeah.
the pipe, I think is what you're asking.
Yeah.
No, this is original.
Oh, okay,
This is original.
okay.
This is original.
In that report, we're not really to that point of discussing it. We're talking about the pavement here. But in that report about the drainage, there is a picture that showing the rough grading of the swale in the back right now. So yeah, it's in process, or at least when I was out there that day, it was
It's done
at it,
now.
it was in
I saw it
process.
yesterday.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, just for clarification, the agreement is that in December of 2014, you think?
I would
No, it
say-
was in 2014.
Yeah, I'd say-
December.
Before
I
that,
found it
was all
online.
By the association.
Yeah, I found it online. It says the district accepts the grant, and I'll look at it in more detail, accepts the grant of easement and will be responsible for the maintenance, repair, and replacement of the asphalt surface of Stella Maris North without accepting responsibility for maintenance of the drainage systems serving Stella Maris North and the common areas or for the asphalt surface of the boat storage area. Paragraph 5, villages acknowledges its responsibility to maintain the drainage systems and will immediately repair any damage to Stella Maris North resulting from maintenance, repair, or replacement of the drainage systems underlying Stella Maris North. So, I mean, I'll look at it in
That's pretty
detail.
cut and dry.
Yeah, this was with the district and Stella Maris Masters Association.
That's the most recent documentation.
This one I found quickly, it's December 29th of 2014.
Sounds like the one that I've seen.
Yeah, it's the only one that there was.
Yeah, there's all.
Besides the one we had in the packet.
Yes, it's the one that you had in the packet.
That's why I brought the whole thing.
I'll look at it in more detail, but it seems to confirm what you're
This is-
saying.
My impression from listening to Dan and them last time was that they didn't think that that agreement was in place, that they basically washed their hands of the whole thing. And when I read the document, my thoughts were, no.
Yeah, it's signed, right?
It's partly yours.
Yeah, it's signed.
It's
Yeah, I know it's
partly yours, so
Yeah.
that's why I asked for the breakout.
I think I have a copy of it signed.
Oh, this is recorded.
Oh, so it's recorded, must be.
It is, yes.
That's why I asked for the breakout.
Yeah, okay.
All right,
Well,
well,
there it is.
he'll break it out and
He'll
then
break it
you
out.
guys can discuss what you want to do with it.
but let's find out what we have there. Okay?
Need a vote on it, so.
Yeah.
Yes, we do. We have a motion to have the engineer to look at that area, both, you know, kind of an expansion of the report that he's already done and developed some plans for bidding, and the attorney to look at the agreement, which he's already done. So,
Initially.
So, and then you'll discuss in the next meeting the drainage responsibilities.
Okay.
All right, any other discussion? All in favor? Okay.
Let me distribute out the draft capital improvement plan. Wish we would have been able to get it to you before so you get it in your packets, but just came off the presses. And again, it's a draft, it's for discussion, it needs to be looked at, talked about, and then we can move to finalizing things.
This is this thing we don't want to look at.
I did give a copy to Mitch too, to Bruce. Bruce says a lot of it does pertain to the utility. And he was very helpful. We met a couple weeks ago, spent about a good chunk of the morning together, taking a look at things, and he was very helpful, coming up with some projects and giving us some insight there.
I think as much as I'm the one that's harping to get this, and now we have it, rather than tie it up now, maybe we should take a month to read it. And go over it next month.
Sure.
I mean, we've got it, it's just,
War and peace.
it's not fair to everybody right now.
Yes. Just give you a couple highlights. So as far as assets, we did not put a number in the report as far as the value of it. If I had to make a guess at your utility value, you're probably 20 to about $30 million worth of assets in the ground if you had to replace everything today.
Yeah.
On the roadway and drainage, that's probably 10, 15 million.
So you got to pull that number off of the audit. Now it's a depreciated value, but your assets are valued, we keep track of them.
Okay.
And the auditors, they depreciate them, you know.
What I was doing was looking,
Yeah,
again,
but they
sales
don't-
replacement value. You have to go with it today to do that. That's probably what you're looking at. When you get back and looking at, you know, some of the tables and so forth on the improvement plans, we just identified them in groups, like 1 to 5 years, 5 to 10.
Good.
10 to 20. What we need to do is take a little bit of looking at refining that a little bit more for you, kind of pick out what we think are the most critical projects. And Mitch and I have talked about what we think some of the ones are on the utility side. And then in your own mind, start thinking about how much do we really can budget to spend each year on these projects so that we can start pulling the things together, dovetailing the two together so that we keep within a reasonable budget for the district.
In your mind, what is the most, over this year and next year, what is the most, if there is one, what is the most immediate necessity that you absolutely know of?
Well, you can't say this year because your budget's
Well,
already
next
in
year,
place.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and some of these projects we're talking about, we need to get started before you look at funding it for the next year. So we got plans, everything ready to go so that when we hit that fiscal year, we can go ahead and get under construction. Mitch, correct me, but I think number one is probably that canal fire irrigation
Number one.
station. It's got to be number one, followed by probably the wellfield transmission main. That it's up there pretty close.
For me, a secondary filter at the wastewater
Okay.
plant would be number 2.
So then, you know, there's some different things here and there.
Sure.
Now, the secondary filter is the scrubber.
So at the wastewater plant, on top of the plant, after it makes its way through all the biology, and it's clear water, it goes to a sand filter.
Right.
Well, I would like to have a disc filter.
That's the thing I'm talking
To work, yes.
Disc
exactly.
filter.
So when the sand filter is out of service, we can use the disc filter, so we have redundancy.
Right.
Because we only have one right now.
Okay.
Yeah, and earlier this week, I might have got a lead on maybe a used one, maybe even.
That is a good filter.
Yeah,
If
we
we're all
might-
good to use Gasparilla.
How are you?
Well, you know about
I
that.
know that filter. I've worked on it.
Okay, it may be available.
Yes, it's a perfect filter. It'd be great back there.
How many miles are on it?
It's got some miles, but it's very
It's solid.
simplistic and solid. And I would guess you could buy it at a really good price.
Well, you know the one he's talking about.
I've serviced that filter. It's Gasparilla Island Utilities. I've maintained it for the last
So
5
it's
years.
okay, I'll go ahead and between Mitch and I, we'll do a little more research and maybe it's something we can move up even sooner if we get it at the right price.
Based on the number you told me, let's figure it out. because it's gotta be less money.
Okay, you do have the money in your budget.
Those babies aren't cheap.
Good. We'll take an early look at that.
Yeah.
But over on the drainage and roadway side, I would say, as far as first priority, is probably looking at reworking the drainage along Newport Drive, and some of those roads over on the western side. And then as construction kind of wraps up and most of those house pads are done over on the K side, then we look at doing some drainage work over there.
If, it's not gonna help, but if we had another Irma scenario, are you comfortable, my favorite thing, that the wellheads are functioning, the generator is functioning, the fire pump especially and generator will be functioning in that scenario, and the big diesel will be functioning and fueled?
I just had the big diesel serviced, it's good. I had the well-filled generator serviced, it's good. They wouldn't really service the one at the fire station, but we did start it, it runs and works. We pulled the two out that's in the building and started those, got them up to speed, they're functioning. So if there's a hurricane, you don't have anything to worry about unless it's something unforeseen like the starter that went bad last time. But other than that,
Or something very, very catastrophic.
yes, yes. And I topped off all the fuel tanks, so we're.
And he has Irma experience.
Yeah. At the time, I don't think any of us, including me, appreciated it, but you had everything back up and running in like a day, I believe,
Yeah,
or
but
less.
I still to this day hate that it ever went down.
Yeah,
So
I mean, you would knew that. I mean, you would just come on.
I think next time, if it's really gonna hit us, we were gonna switch to generator ahead of time. And I'm gonna lower the water pressure to really like 30 PSI so that you have water. But if there's a bunch of broken lines, we're not spitting water out everywhere so that we can try to conserve.
It's been 3 years, and I gotta tell you, talking conversations and different things about Irma and what happened at Irma, what was Irma like, right? And people looked at me more than once and said, you mean your toilets work?
Yeah.
I mean, gee, I guess we were lucky.
You know, normally the toilets do work, you just gotta go outside and get
Yeah.
some water.
Yeah, that's true. But they have that
The
water.
other way of making sure you had drinking water.
Sure. Okay, good.
Yeah, please take a look at the CIP next week.
No, absolutely.
Let's talk about it. I think we're ready to talk about Stelmar's North drainage. And I did a little report on that. Took a little bit look at the south also as part of that. Again, the north, last time I was out there, it was rough graded. Before I leave today, I'm gonna go out there again and take a look at it. Sounds like it's been sodded and so
Yeah,
forth.
it has been.
I think maybe one of the questions may be, now that it's sodded and so forth, access, and it may be a concern of the board themselves, is how is that best addressed?
Yeah, there's no walkway across that swale. And it does appear to be, if not deeper, wider. And I tried it myself. To walk through that swale and up is not an easy thing to do. So now you got all these boat lifts. How do you get to your boat? Especially, I think that one picture showed someone in a wheelchair. It's not accessible to the handicap. But I believe the other set on Cage Drive has walkways. But what's our responsibility or liability?
I don't, I'll jump and make it on a non-legal opinion, but I don't think you've got any responsibility for what they do back there.
You have a responsibility to maintain, if that's your drainage swale, you have to maintain it.
Right.
But as far as access to the boats, that's not your responsibility.
I mean, initially, I would say, and how long has the drainage system been there in that swale format between the other surfaces and docks?
Well, the one we're talking about, Stelmar's North, we don't have any responsibility for drainage back there at all.
It's south.
Or the swale, so we don't have any,
But yet on the homes, we do.
Right.
on the south, we do. On the south, we do.
Oh.
Well, that's been an agreement.
Yeah,
don't know.
North is one of the
I think the swale-
few areas where we don't have any
Okay,
maintenance.
so the issue is north, not south, because south
Yes.
I see sidewalks and other things.
Correct.
Yeah.
You know, I guess if you as the board of supervisor want to help them out, that's one thing. We can give them some suggestions.
Yeah.
You know, how to minimize the encroachments in their own drainage areas. So I'd be glad to meet with them, give them a few hours.
I thought we owned all those swales and maintained them.
No, on the north, we don't, on the south, there, I believe we do have some responsibility there.
How did that happen? One has it, one doesn't.
This whole place was built at different times by different.
96 for
Yeah,
south was where we started. They didn't start north until what, 2000?
Yeah, this is a mishmash. That's why there's not one association.
And there was several homeowner associations like that everything from the road end was theirs. And then one of the associations approached the CID and they accepted everything there. And then Stella Maris, of course, like I say, they had problems with their water sewer and we needed to get in there and fix it because it was a main. And then one thing led to another, but I think that might be the only one. And I could be wrong, there might be others that.
Well, some of the condos, you know, we don't have the responsibility there. The drainage are the roadways, just the utilities. But yeah, in fact, in the CIP, we do have a listing of by category what you are responsible for.
Okay.
So that should help us in the future. And part of the reason with the south also is just the way they were platted. Those were platted lots with the easement given along the seawall,
Had a different
drainage and
time.
everything. Where the Celamars North is set up as a condo. Right. And it's just got common areas. It doesn't have the easement. We've got no jurisdiction in the common areas except for the roadway.
And constantly at the time when South Florida Water Management District permit was applied for, the application were to state the operating entity was going to be the association, not the district.
Right.
That,
So Southwest Florida Management would have approved the swale that's there now, right? The one that was just built, like we were showing the picture of, that had to be approved by somebody to change it.
The South Florida.
It would either be South Florida or it could have fell at the time underneath Cuyahoga County jurisdiction too. At one time, Cuyahoga County, if your size of your parcel was so small, that they would take permitting on that. So some of that's changed over the years back and forth. And I'd have to do some digging with the permits to find out actually who's got jurisdiction on that on permitting.
I think
If I may, I went down and spoke to Collier County a couple weeks ago, and I've got this gentleman's business card attached to the site plan there. May I get it? And I'll tell you what he said. He indicated that they would defer to you as CID, saying that you all are our government controlling entity, and as such, the county would defer to what you would suggest. I spoke with a gentleman named Richard Ford, O-R-T-H. He's a senior environmental specialist. There's his information and whatnot. He was one that told me that he felt Collier County should defer to you as the controlling entity. So that's my idea.
But you're saying we're not.
Yeah.
You're saying we're not controlling it.
Well,
he's
not
talking
on private
about-
property.
Yeah.
You're the controlling entity on public property.
Right. With regard to the drainage, that was,
Well, but the drainage right now is on private property, so.
I'm not
Yeah,
disputing
that's
that.
what I'm saying. And again, it looks like we didn't take ownership of the drainage in that community. So I need to probably do a little research to find out who actually
Who's
has that.
responsible?
Yeah, yeah,
That sounds like a big one kicking around, yeah.
yeah.
Well, if I may, my request is that somebody please find out who should inspect it and tell us if it is done correctly. If it is done correctly, then we would be happy to accept that and we'll deal with whatever we're going to have to do in terms of pedestrian bridges. But first, I'd like to know that it was done correctly. That seems reasonable.
That's fair. Well, an engineer can determine that. Do you want to spend your engineering funds to determine if private property is properly constructed?
under Florida law, you're not allowed to use public funds for primarily
Right.
private purposes.
Right.
Primarily, it'd be primarily public with an incidental private purpose.
Right. Well, I'm certainly a problem with that anyway, because that should be taken care of by the designer. That's all part of their package. So,
Yeah.
is that what, is whoever, I don't know.
Let me do a little checking to find out a little more to find who permitted it, whether it was South Florida, whether it was the county, and then who the responsible for their ownership and maintenance was assigned, whether it was the association or who.
But to me, it sounds like had it been replaced the way it was, they were gonna flood, because you can't go over the seawall.
Right. And there was a design on the plans, it's just a matter of whether, and I don't know how the water flowed over the seawall, it was never intended to.
Right.
I guarantee you, it was never intended to overflow the seawall, it just would have been permitted that way. But let me check, I got the SDP number and so forth, so that's gonna help me chase a little bit too. Now,
So we'll include this section in what you previously approved. Okay.
Great.
Anything else?
Decided.
The,
Decided.
looking at that site and the responsibility and so forth, that'll be included in the overall drainage, just looking at it, right? And David will come back and possibly the next meeting and give you a
Because
report.
I feel different about the road.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Swear.
I have a quick question about your pictures with Stellar South.
yeah, there is an issue there. Again, it's supposed to be owned and operated by the association that's there. But I did notice there is some no-nos that are occurring out there that's not according to the permit probably. And that's those direct discharges in the canal. Is that swale? Well, swales should go to the control structures for discharge there.
The question, here's the question, I've lived there since '09. And I don't ever remember, we've never put those from the swale to the outside, I mean, to the, over the seawall. We didn't put those there, they were there. All we did was carry them across the seawall because we didn't want water backing up behind our seawall because that's what leads to seawall failure. So all we did was carry the line that was there from the swale to the, it actually drains in, they used to drain into that, into the cinder area there where all the cinder, the rocks are. So we carried that over to put that into the canal rather than letting it drain into our area right directly next to our seawall. But when you said they need to be removed, I don't think we ever did that. That's what I'm saying. I think that was part of the original design for that swale. I don't know.
We can share that with you.
Yeah.
Let me send that to you.
Appreciate it.
All right.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, we ready to move on? All right, that brings us to the manager's report. You've got a copy of the financials. Sorry, you got them at the late, but you know, the moving your meeting up will has put a little bit of more pressure on us. I would say that this does not reflect, individual does not reflect the bond payment. Because we don't pay it. Well, if they take it, because it's the same bank that handles your operating and your debt service, so they just pull it out, and they did that on the first, so that might have been the seventh, because they forgot to pull it out, yeah. No, of May. May 1 it was
So
due,
the financials we're looking at,
April 30th, right, so it was, you'll see it next month.
Yeah.
Which is about $500,000. So other than that, you haven't received another payment. Your taxes collection are current. We haven't received anything yet this month. Something will come in probably next week. They usually pay once a month. I can answer questions.
I had one, I don't have it in front of me. I think it's on the water, some NSF checks. What do we do with NSF checks?
We send them back and show them not collected, but I believe that there's a $5 NSF fee.
You know, we have one for like 2,100. Legally, do we do anything like follow it up with the sheriff's department?
If
Get
that's
elected or vote.
necessary, yes. I'd have to look into it.
Yeah, it's a utility payment.
Yeah. And that could be a payment, they were on auto pay, and they had a bad, which isn't here, but they had bad reading, but it still got pulled out, and so then it wasn't paid, they charged it as an NSO. But I'll check on that.
Something that what we were talking about.
It sounds like it.
Yeah, the amount 2,000, just remember the amount being 2,000 somewhere.
Yeah.
So I'll find out about that. Anything else? Just need a motion to accept. So moved.
And I second that if needed, if I feel I have a question on something, however it goes, because I haven't seen the general ledger,
Yes.
that I'll bring it up next month, but I accept this as is.
Yeah, they'll just give us a call. We do, every year financials are reviewed by a consulting CPA, just, make sure. I know, they're not as good as you are, you're right.
They're amateurs.
So, but,
Chicken
you
time.
know, we want to have the same confidence level that you guys
No, I
have and
understand
everything.
that, yeah.
Fine, but if you have any questions, give me a call, or if I'm not around, call Nancy, and then she'll get with Jennifer and we'll get you with that spot. Okay. All in favor of accepting? Now you've got a copy of the budget. In fact, I bought, Ray, you asked for a hard copy. Just in case, I think I bought two, but you'll have one, okay. But the only change in the budget, we'd already incorporated the $300 per ERC reduction. And a reminder that if it's everyone doesn't get a $300 reduction, it's based on how many ERCs. So if you're in a condo, it would be 0.8 of $300. So, and then we incorporated all of the changes on mosquito spraying that was requested. And you can see that on page 3 of what I passed out, but there's 12,000 now for the contract. That's up from 9375, 10,000 in chemicals and 2,000 in R&M.
You're saying it was given to us, I can't find it. Can't find it.
Oh, no. It wasn't there. I sent it out last night.
It's on.
You want a hard copy? Let me know.
It's in your email.
Really?
It's in your email.
Yeah,
Yeah, there's an extra one right there.
You want one, Russ?
I think that's, I think it's the same thing there.
Yeah, it's just exactly like what you had last week, with the exception of those changes in the mosquito spray.
So folks, what that means, so that everybody gets it, is that condos are gonna have a reduction next year in the budget of $250. And single families, $240. See, from the water plant being done, and Terry and Russ especially, and Terry mostly really pushing, that's coming to you. No matter what happens out back, no matter what happens anywhere, you're gonna see that your taxes go down next year, which is as soon as we can do it.
Yeah, the reason being, when we raised the assessments, it was to help pay the debt, because we had some deadbeats that weren't paying. And now that we're making the final debt payment this year, we worked on numbers to see what we can give back, because that's what we had promised. So we came up with about 80%. You
Well,
don't spend it on me.
it's mostly, it really is mostly Terry. She fought for it a lot. We all wanted it, but but she's the one that made it work. And when and if something happens out back, we're hoping we can do more. It's just, you gotta run the place too. Okay?
And remember that list of capital improvements, so we want
Yeah.
that to happen.
Now you've got a choice. You
That's
can set the public hearing today, and by approving this budget that's been prepared, if you want to wait till the 12th hour, we can do it at the June meeting. But like I say, I won't be there, Nancy will be there, she's more than.
I mean, why not?
So, but if
Why
you
not
want to set it, we've got a resolution that adopts a tentative budget that can be changed whenever you want. The one thing that you're restricting yourself from is increasing the assessment. Now, you can still increase it above the rate that you're adopting here. Instead of 300, you say 250. You can still do that. You just can't go above what you're currently assessing.
But the expenditure to do that is around 200-something thousand to lower the assessment.
Oh, we'll lose, yeah, we lower the assessment about 200.
Yeah, so why not just do it? I mean, look at who does the books after all.
Okay, so then you have resolution 2021-02, setting a public hearing for the public to comment on the budget, and which would be your formal adoption date for August 13th at 9:30 a.m. here at the clubhouse. Need a motion to approve resolution 2021-02.
So
Second.
And I only have one comment. If, give me a day to look at this,
Oh, yeah.
you know, because I didn't know we got it last
Yeah,
night.
and any changes can be made right up until when you adopt it. But what we'll do, so that you understand the process, if say next meeting, you say, oh, I want to change this or that, we'll keep track of it. But what it gets sent to the county and what, is advertised is this budget you're approving now. So,
Okay,
but
so
we
I
can
know.
make the changes at the public hearing. Okay?
What was that date? Did you reserve?
August 13th.
9:30.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
it's
Okay,
okay.
the next thing is just a FYI, and this is a letter from your auditors saying that this is what they're gonna look at, this is what they're gonna do, and that was in your packet, page 14. And no actions needed. I think we just sent their responses to their final request this week, so we should have that. So as soon as we get it, we'll send it out to you so that when you can look at it. But it's, we always get pretty clean audits. There was a question at the last meeting regarding parking of boats. And so we copied from the county code, and you got a copy of that, what is permitted and what isn't permitted. And, you can only park on the front or side of the property if it meets one of these conditions, and there's 5 conditions there, but it has to be one of those. So anyhow, I don't know if you want me to do anything, but this is a report back of what is and isn't permitted. It does fall under the county.
That's Cuyahoga County, and I just had nothing better to do. Dug out my papers I got at my closing 20 years ago, and it's articles of incorporation, bylaws, and the covenants and restrictions. And there's stuff in here too about boats and RVs. And how does, because some of it I read, and I mean, I'm brain dead. Some of it I read, it looks like it has to be revisited. Like it had a 5-year extension, and I think 2022 is when, are these still active?
These here are current county codes.
That's county code,
Yeah,
but
and we don't enforce or have anything to do with the articles of incorporation or your docs. That would probably
What about
be
covenants?
administered through the county, right?
Yeah.
If it's the restrictive covenants that are imposed, those are private contractual matters among that particular group of owners,
right.
under property owners or condominium associations.
Yeah, like here's a sample.
I bet that, I mean, without seeing them, I assume that's
Yeah.
what
a sample would be like it says, your hedges that you have between two properties can only be like either 4 or 6 feet high. So some of them are higher than that. So is that county? No, I think that's covenant.
No, but there's no active association for the homes.
That's the whole point. If there was an active association that took care of that, but there is none.
So it comes up to county.
So I think that it's almost like those are there, but they mean nothing.
There's no enforcement.
There's
But
no
what about
enforcement
if there
because
is a
there's no-
homeowners association, let's say your condo association, you don't abide by the covenants?
Oh, yeah?
we have to abide by our covenants, yes, absolutely.
But not these covenants.
I don't think most people even know there's covenants.
Yeah.
I got
From
it
Port of
close.
the Isle.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Tony, but whatever the code is.
Right.
The homeowners association can approve something less than, but they can't set something greater than what the prevailing jurisdiction is, which is the county in this situation.
No, you can't be, it's just the way
The
around.
other way around,
Yeah.
okay.
You can be more restrictive, you
Right.
can be less.
Exactly. That's what I meant to say.
So, it's county, so anything that's, this is null and void basically, but I'm gonna turn it over.
Okay, yeah, I mean, the county has a land development code that has certain requirements for maintenance of property,
Yeah.
fence heights, maximum fence heights, and items such as that. It's a county issue. A group of individuals and or developer can get together and impose a set of covenants that binds their property and the community to certain standards that can be more restrictive than the county. And to that extent, those are not district issues. Those are issues among the association and its members, because those covenants constitute a contract among the membership.
Right, so I got these at closing, but there's never been a homeowners association.
Correct.
Yeah, there's two aspects. Yeah, there's two considerations. One is that if it's homeowners covenants and restrictions, it's a private matter. Secondly, there's a Florida statute that talks about the length of duration of those and when they need to be reinstated, how they can be reinstated,
what I-
or else they expire.
Yeah, that's what I.
Some of the
stated
older
there, so-
communities in Collier County, for example, where I live in North Collier, that development was in the 60s is when it started.
Yeah, this was
And those
75.
covenants expired a long time ago, and they were not reinstated. Plus, there's another Florida statute that
These, I don't think they were.
can wipe them out, so.
I think what I read, it
There's a
started
sunset
in
time.
85, but somewhere I picked up, it has to be kept going. in
Yes.
2022. That's why I'm.
Yeah, there is a separate statutory process where
Yeah.
a reinstatement is filed, notices provided to everybody, and you have to go through it to maintain the viability.
Mhm.
But again, these are private matters, contractual matters, I would say.
And I guess that's the report is, this is the county standards, and
Right,
if
that's what we
there's a
go on.
violation, you need to report it to the county code enforcement.
That's, yeah, that was the whole reason I brought it up.
Yeah.
Is, so we can, because the reason it doesn't get recorded by a lot of other people here is that you have to give your name, et cetera, and people are hesitant to give their name because they have to be able to say, well, Sam Lashir
Yeah, they have to
reported
tell
you
you.
for a violation, and they don't want to do that. I thought it would be easier if the CID did it that way. It's the CID rather than an individual.
Yeah, the county used to have a policy that ended about 5 or 6 years ago where you could anonymously file.
Right.
That's right, they got rid of
But
that.
that became,
Out of hand.
well, you had neighbors getting mad at other neighbors,
Yeah.
they would call the neighbors in,
Yeah,
and no accountability, and, yeah.
No.
I know, I was shocked also at the time.
But it's like little things. I have a neighbor who does his own lawn, which is fine. I did mine till I killed it. But they don't edge, and I'm afraid our culverts, because all the grass is growing in that swale in the front. So I'm afraid that's going to impact the water, but all I do is go talk to them. That's all I do.
Well, when you talk about stormwater systems, and David Carroll can correct me wrong, the county, especially after Irma, has been much more proactive and reactive to maintenance of stormwater systems. So to the extent that there's supposed to be, say there's a county code requiring maintenance of the system, the county may get involved in that, saying you need to maintain your swales, your system so that it properly accepts and conveys stormwater.
Yeah, well, we got involved with like the back swale, people planting in it
That's become a CID issue.
Yeah. because of the drainage and everything. Okay.
Okay, then, just a FYI and a legal requirement that we have to do, I have to notify you that there's 658 registered voters living in Port Islands.
So that vote issue, what was the outcome?
It just that it's got, I mean, if the board, I don't know what you want us to do, I mean, we could talk to code enforcement and just say, you know, we're getting complaints and can you do a ride through here?
That's right.
We, as your management company, we're not hired to do property enforcement.
No, but if we simply, if the CID or you call and say, having a ride through and take care of the problem, because we have a number of issues
Yeah, it's
here
more
where
than
people
one,
just,
so.
they park and they go away for the summer and their boat sits there all summer long or their RV, and it's just not fair to everybody else in here who does not do that.
Okay, would you like us to do that?
I would call.
Yeah.
Boats and RVs.
This gentleman back here wants to.
I have a question. You talked about RV parking area earlier. So is the CID in favor of having RV parking areas in the CID area?
When you say CID area, what area?
Well, Stella Mars has got a boat and trailer area there.
Stella Mars, I believe.
That's
owns
Stella
that.
Maris North.
That's their like.
That's Stella Maris North that owns
That's
that.
private.
That's private.
Not ours.
Not
We
ours.
don't,
The CID doesn't have anything to do with it?
No, that's private.
Oh,
No.
so,
Yeah, but I see this.
so if I have other land that's private land, is there any reason I can't have boat storage on that?
Is it zoned?
Yes, C4.
What I would suggest is if it's not involving district property, that this board not give advice as to what is allowed and not allowed under the land development code.
Yeah. Yeah, because your C4 will explain what you can do, but if it's your property.
To answer your question, C4 is just about like wide open. So if someone wanted to put boat storage there, if that's what you're asking, yeah, that can happen.
But I think he's saying, you know, they can contact the county.
Well, and if you're going to engage in having a C4 parcel as a storage lot, I would suggest that that would need to be properly permitted to the county. You can't just pick up and say, this is my.
Right.
Okay, but wait a minute. All right, I get where he's going with that. The property on Stella Maris North, right as you pull in, there's a parking area there. It's not in the rear, it's on the side. So what does that mean? They can't park there? They can't leave their boats there? They're there all summer.
What are you talking? The lot?
Right as you pull into Stella Maris North.
It's
Yeah.
like, it's right here, a parking area.
That's their property.
Right, so it's my property, my property. So if I want to park an RV on it, it's my property. It's private, that's private. What's the difference?
Oh, yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
There's a designated parking area there.
But it's not a CID issue.
Right, that's what I'm saying. You're gonna bring, and tell them to drive around, they're gonna look at that and say, okay. So I mean, you're already getting warrants if you do this, so.
Okay.
Let's just leave it.
Yeah, I'm not really for them driving through.
Okay.
You're not for them driving through?
Well, what happens if they make those people say, okay, they can't keep their stuff there?
What about if
They
what's
probably will.
happening gets abused more
Sure.
and more?
Huh?
What happens if what's happening now gets abused more and more? Like I have a new neighbor and their boat's already in the driveway.
That's what he said.
So,
Which
You're gonna tell one group you can't do it in your yard, but you'll tell another group.
right,
that's right.
We're gonna.
And actually, we're not telling them, that's the county.
but so far it hasn't happened. And it's not,
I understand Stella Mars on Hayes Drive, because of the docks being built, has a county permit to keep their boats in the driveway until it's complete.
well, that's just temporary.
Yeah, that's a
They
temporary.
just have a dispensation from the
Yeah.
county.
But what he's saying, that parking area by Stellameros North, where everybody's parking their boats and stuff,
Should be
is in violation.
Right.
And he's saying, well, what about another place? And there's no parity is what he's saying.
The only difference is the parking area is not owned by individuals. The parking area is owned by the association.
And they're allowing it.
And they're allowing it. Whereas as an individual, you're under the Collier County rules as far as a residential property. You're under their rules.
I think the association not under it too. No, I think the association should be under it too. If they come through, they're gonna hit everybody.
Oh, yeah.
But isn't the association of condos and all zoned differently?
I don't know. We really don't want to get involved in that. We need a premier district manager. We don't want to get involved with enforcing property violations. We'll make a call if that's what you're asking, but it's just a friendly call. It's not anything, I mean, but you're opening up a can of worms. And there's been voiced by at least one board member that you really want to do it.
Right.
I don't.
I agree.
Yeah, I don't want to walk out of here, call county code enforcement, and then all of a sudden you guys say, what are you doing? Why'd you do that?
You suck it up.
We'll allow them to park out wherever they
Yeah. Dan Truckey's got a comment back here.
I'm Vice President of the Village of Mars.
Could you walk up closer to here so we can get you on the speaker and everyone, we do have a crowd that's online.
I'm Dan Truckey, Vice President, Villages at Stella Maris. That boat parking lot is designated and permitted by the county and on all our drawings as a boat parking area. The county is well aware of it. It's on all our drawings, our maps, our plans, our when the place is built. So I don't think it's going to be a problem with the county.
So there you have
So it's nothing that
allowed you.
It's nothing we just decided to put boats in. It was that way from the builder. It's on his plans as a boat parking area. And they've all been signed and sealed and delivered by the.
Okay, I was just worried that they were gonna stop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
No, none of it's designated.
I had a friend who was still a Mars one. It's permitted. I mean, it's permitted by the county that.
So all we're going for is residential areas. And
I can't tell them just residential.
oh, no. What I'm saying is that's the only people that are going to be affected.
What he's saying is if you told them that lot, that's a legal use, right?
Right.
Yeah,
He's saying
it-
private.
it just ended the conversation. My experience with code enforcement, Mike Lasario is in charge of code enforcement, super guy. They want site specific and type of, they don't go, they used to. If you go on for a call, if I called my neighbor on a code enforcement matter, if they saw something on my property, they would write me up also as well as them. Now they just go to the site and look for the violation that's been asserted. They don't go looking around the whole neighborhood, so you would have to give them a list.
Yeah.
And
yeah, I'm not in favor of the CID getting involved in going around the neighborhood and policing the area, but
Yeah, I think that if anyone complains to you, give them a copy of those rules and, tell them to contact the county.
they can make the complaint online.
Okay. So we're not doing anything. Okay, good. Let's see, we have the voter count. Now we're on the field report. As usual, it's pretty lengthy. Do you want me to go through it or do you want to just answer questions?
All I want to know is what we're paying these ponds. I can talk about that.
Yeah, basically, they're supposed to spray for weeds.
Okay.
They're supposed to do, if there's algae or something, they'll spray, some chemicals for that. That's about it.
Okay. That's it.
Yeah.
Because I thought there was some plant removal or something they had to do.
If there's plant
First it's too
removal,
wet, then it's too dry.
well, that was, you guys had paid to install some littorals.
Around the pond.
Yeah, but they only did the first time. They haven't
Yeah.
done others.
But you haven't paid them anything either, so.
We didn't, no.
Yeah, I think they said they were delaying something.
Yeah.
It was 2 hours.
But one of the problems, and you can see it now, I looked at them today, and they're starting to die.
It's right.
And it's because there's no rain. So that's why they don't like to plant littorals except right before the rainy season.
They're soon.
Maybe we just need to use them to keep it clean. We don't have to be planting
Yeah,
plants.
well, we could, they gave such a great price. There's a lot of firms that'll do plantings. So plantings is, if you put plants on the littoral shelf, it helps prevent, it keeps it clean because they eat the nutrients in it. That's what they live on. And it also preserves the banks. So they help keep the algae down. Yes.
Question, are we going to consider planting something on the Case Drive entrance there, trees or something to replace the ones that we had again at Durham?
You can't put any palm trees.
Well, you can't put palms, but you can put other trees there.
We can.
No, I didn't know that was.
It's not in plans now unless David's got it in his CIP.
No, we didn't include landscape.
Okay, I didn't know whether, we were going to do that or not.
Yeah, during Michelle's next ride around with Robert, maybe you could ask him
Sure.
for a planning proposal.
Okay.
I mean, yeah, I just think we ought to have something there. It's just got a barren now with all three of those
I
trees.
know, it's, yeah, sad.
Anything else in the field report?
One of the things I noticed in the field report was there's a head wall that's on the middle of the 3 ponds over on Case Drive. And it's rotated and caused the pipe to actually pull loose from the adjoining pipe. And it did mention about getting it fixed sometime soon. Well, sometime soon, maybe now. People are not that fixed.
Yeah.
Before rainy season.
Before rainy season, I think.
Excited, yeah.
So you want us to just get it taken care of, or do you want bring the proposal back?
No, by the time we bring it back, it will be rainy season. Just do it.
You want to handle that? I don't need to help you out.
Chris did.
Okay, Chris needs somebody.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else?
I mean, a lot of this stuff is going to stay around when it stops raining.
Yeah. I'm sorry. What was that?
One problem. That's it. Too dry to too wet.
Okay, nothing else on Chris's report, looking at some of his follow-up items. He had the one on Newport Drive, the electrical panel that they're still waiting on parts, but, it's on top of that. Then there was another electrical panel for Union Road, and you have a copy of that in your, for $1,750 to replace that. Is that good?
Yeah.
Motion to approve it?
So moved.
Okay. See why one of them.
Just because of the timing, anything I can get, like a regular maintenance or anything else, I bring it to the board. But if it's like, if we would have got this tomorrow or Monday, then we would have just taken care of it. Because it needs to be done, right?
Okay.
So, do you need a
So, but if I
second?
can get the board's approval on it, then that's just better for me.
All right.
So moved.
Okay, no, we have a motion by Mr. Jensen. So, Mr. Lashier, you.
Yeah, I'll second.
Okay, any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, the Caves Drive landscape light repair is scheduled to be done today. So they'll be replacing the rusted out time clock at that time also. The no fishing sign, he wasn't sure, did you want 4, did you want 2? Would you like them at get both sides of the bridge as they're coming across? But he wasn't sure what you wanted there. He didn't want to order it without a little more direction.
I think currently we've got at least one going eastbound.
Okay,
I'd say 2, 1 on each end, east and west, right?
So you're gonna need total
Four,
four.
Four, but there may be
Right.
one there already.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Then 3.
Before I
But
think I might take a look.
Okay.
And it should be right on the walkways as you walk on the bridge, because that's where.
On either side.
Yeah, they're netting, they're.
Great. Okay, let's see. I think I missed, oh, that's business, okay. That takes us to the attorney's report.
Good morning. One item that's noted in there regards to the Prep Mac lawsuit update. The only updates are filed a motion to substitute Dan Cox from our law firm for Dan as counsel. Also, Prep Mac has a new attorney. Their attorney was suspended for practice of law, so they have a new attorney.
The guy who was just here?
No, this gentleman was, I don't know, Chuck.
He was here.
He was here
2 months ago.
Yeah.
Oh, well, the Supreme Court order of suspension was in January and became effective 30 days after, and then he had a rehearing. That was finalized in March, so.
Yeah, it might have been.
He tried to work.
Yeah.
So, Dan didn't know about it. So that's, they have a new counsel. I had a brief phone call with that gentleman, Mr. DeCosta, this week. He is getting up to speed with his client, so he indicated he might get back to me in the next week or 2 on the settlement discussions. I submitted a proposed order to the court to extend the time for the district to respond for 30 days after any settlement discussions terminate. And Mr. Cutback's attorneys had no objection to that. We sent it in on May 11th. Sometimes the court's a little slower on the order. I don't have it yet. As soon as I do, I'll send a copy.
And a part of the problem was claims did such a high percentage of an increase. But I think we need to make sure that this like 18% decrease would help us with this case against us.
Yeah.
Trying to be.
It's 18% of a big number. So it's-
Well, everyone gets, the water sewer gets 18%, but I think that we have.
He went to 136. Went from 150.
Where was, the percentage of decrease for the docks was, I don't know, but it was less, it's like 14% or something because of the, so.
One of the items just not in here is just that the legislature in their wisdom, you may have read about it, you can tell us a little tongue-in-cheek comment, had passed some legislation, and it's now on the governor's desk, which would limit the timing and amount of impact fee increases. And it's retroactive, and the governor signs it, it's retroactive to January of this year. And so, yeah, there's some limitations on how much you can increase it, and I have to phase it in over a period of time.
But we did it
We did it at least a year.
But
or
I'm
two
just sort of
ago.
perspective.
Yeah. So it's
It requires new affidavits about how to, an affidavit to accompany the financial statements about, so typically with legislation, either some legislators develop a friend or mother or aunt got burned. That's sort of what I usually, something like that. We'll just keep tuned. When the governor signs it, I'll send it.
But I don't think, when I read that, I don't think that the assessment would be considered an impact fee.
No, assessments, what becomes impact fees are connection fees sometimes. Yeah. Those can be construed under statute.
We do charge, I mean, we're getting good money on the connection.
He just knew we can't.
There you go. You can change them, you can change them, but you get there's a cap as to how you change them. You have to face them in a period of time. But that's, again, that's just a heads up in case.
Yeah. Yeah, they haven't been, connection fees haven't been increased in 10 years.
Now you tell me.
And working with Cal, getting up to speed on everything and on various matters, including as to the, we'll be talking about the 48, 49 acres shortly, about filing a quiet title action because the manner in which the district currently has title, in order to make it marketable, we need to file a quiet title action. So we'll put together a memo with Cal to approve us initiating.
Then we found out this barred attorney was involved with a
suspended
attorney. Is the same one that was involved in before we ever got in the district, but community and Clearwater, and they developed put in jail. So, Mr. Trump just let one of them out, so, but it's such a small world.
Yeah, Cal and I were talking, and he said, oh, I just picked up this new district and name, and I go, okay, and I did a little digging on it, because he told me about some of the issues. I go, that's the guy who went to jail with the attorney was small world, right?
Yeah, everybody knows this community is, because it's in the professional, city management thing, or district management, because it's such an unusual case. And this poor condo association, they got stuck with $30 million worth of bills that it was kind of a Ponzi scheme. And now
No way.
Well, and we're.
No way.
Yeah, where all the money got invested, they ended up, the investors, because when they went broke, the investors turned around and sold it and relieved them of any obligation for the $30 million of bonded indebtedness.
And where did it end up?
Probably in somebody's pocket. So
It's funny how that happens.
Yeah, it's
Those
small
developers, they're so slick.
Well, this one wasn't that, these weren't that slick, because they ended up in jail. But he must have been slick enough to pay somebody to get a presidential pardon.
That's pretty slick.
Yeah. Okay, then under old business, we've got morph right into the parcel 13 discussion.
If you'd like, after the last meeting, Cal provided me a copy of the letter of intent, and then also the attorney, Rachel's agreement. Yeah, draft purchase agreement. I made a number of comments, I just go through that. At the outset, it's a very one-sided agreement, and basically it's an option. It's a 19-month or so option for $50,000. And that there are a number of steps that the buyer has the ability to make, and then also the district would have certain obligations to sign off on all development applications and approvals. And conditions to close would be, there's a number of conditions to close, which would be obtaining all the necessary approvals. And so from my perspective, it's basically a very one-sided an option, an almost 2-year look. In my opinion, once again, the board makes the ultimate decisions, but in my opinion, I would not recommend that we draft to the board. The land would be tied up for about 19 months, almost 2 years.
Like 50 grand.
Yeah, correct, and it's refundable.
Right, no guarantees.
No assurance of closing, and the document also provides the district cannot enter into any other agreements. Right.
Exactly.
Yeah, and typically.
Takes it off the market.
Right, typically there are sellers that typically have backup agreements. In other words, this happens frequently when I go to sell my house to Cal, and I get another offer because the market's hot. I can entertain a backup offer from Dave and say, hey, that's subject to my other agreement with Cal. If that one, Cal's deal goes south, and you get it, then you're stepping in the shoes. But the inspection period is quite extensive. It's a 90-day extension period, 15 months to either obtain or waive approvals, and then 30 days after closing conditions satisfied or waived by buyers. That gets to 19 months. There's no assurance it will close at that time.
Or get paid.
Or get paid. And also they want a recorded memorandum of agreement. And I would never recommend that if I'm the seller, the buyer, because that puts parties on notice that there's another contract. And then to get that memorandum of agreement off record, it's difficult if the other party was cooperative, even though the agreement says this deal goes south, we agree to release the memorandum of agreement. I've seen fights over that, and so then it might be litigation to release it. So I think that's unacceptable. And it says as drafted, the district is prevented from negotiating with anyone else and can't entertain or accept any offers, including backup offers. It commits the district to sign all necessary development order applications with no right of review or approval. In my opinion, based upon the conversations I heard at the board meeting, the question that was asked, that would be unacceptable because the district would be saying, okay, whatever you put in front of us, we'll sign. And it provides the district with no advanced review or approval. It just says you have to sign it. The application. On deposits, in my opinion, the initial deposit is fully refundable up to 90 days after the effective date. And if you have a deal like this and it stretches out for a period of time, typically in those type of transactions, there was a additional deposits that were provided, in that those deposits go firm. Those that become non-refundable, generally, after certain steps. There might be reasons when the buyer would get everything back, but those are limited reasons. And that's, again, there's no step up or increase in the deposits. So basically, I provided, what I did, I took a little, they call it red line, it turned out to be blue line. And extensive changes, provided the Kale. Kale cursed me for 3 hours. No, and then I provided, Kale's provided both this outline and the draft, my red lines to the buyer's representative.
Yes.
I thought it was appropriate. These are my initial thoughts. The board makes the ultimate decision. And one other part I put in there, or just as a placeholder, I know the board expressed a concern about what will it look like. And again, that becomes a negotiating issue. And the board could, as a matter of its review and approval of any design plans or permit application, give some criteria. So here's what we want, generally. But again, as drafted, it's unacceptable. Cal, I guess my understanding is they are still interested.
Right, they haven't said they're not interested, but they're reviewing it now. They'll get back with us. If they have issues with anything that Tony's recommended, then we'll discuss them as a board and see if those are issues that you can accept or not accept. But I did let them know too that you've got 2 backup orders, so.
Yeah, and what we also researched was there's a letter of intent, and everybody's acting in good faith in regards to this transaction. But as drafted, one of my associates, Zach, the younger as opposed to the older attorney. Did some research on the enforceability of the letter of intent. If the board wanted to terminate it, our opinion is you have the ability to terminate. But right now, we're not recommending that. Right now, I think staff's recommending to see what the reaction is by the buyer.
How long do they have to accept the changes?
No, there's no real time frame.
No real time frame?
Can I ask
It could be 19 months?
No.
Can I ask some questions? Because we're chasing the dragon, let's face it. And that's been my issue with this right along. But until recently, until the purchase and sale, I felt they've been acting in good faith. I no longer feel that way. I'd like to ask you a couple of questions. The first one is this, and this is my pet peeve, and I asked them specifically. There's been 3 changes to the LOI, and then now the purchase and sale, which is the buy. It's gone from Ed Zeman, and we're selling it to Zeman Homes, Ed Zeman, and Assigns, and he lists specific companies that he owns. One of them, or 2 of them, that build double wides and mobile homes, okay, that have nothing to do with a luxury RV park. That concerns me. It's gone from that in the purchase and sale to Assigns, which is vague. That could be to you, to me, to anybody. That's got to go. That language has got to go, in my opinion.
That one I-
Or quite often when there's language with regard to the assignment, it provides the ability to, they can assign it with the approval of the seller, and the seller in absolute discretion can reject it, or the seller can request some additional information. So there is great latitude as to how that can be drafted.
I would just as soon as signs isn't in there, and we just tell it to him. Now, that leads me to my next thing. And I'm going to tell you why.
My comment was that shall not have the right to assign it without written consent, which may be held in seller's sole and absolute discretion.
I just feel it doesn't, there's no assignments. But that's not uncommon. There doesn't have to be an assignment. And I just took it.
It's a pleasure of the board.
Yeah, I'm just speaking for me. Now, something Ms. Oswald said, okay, and I absolutely agree with it then, I agree with it more now. Let's say the market, the real estate market will crash. At some point it does, every 7 years or so, it will crash. This most recent fuel problem with big RVs, COVID for a year, okay, impacts the marketability of a high-end luxury RV resort. So if it looks like, just like Orchid Cove for building, if it looks like it's not going to make Zeman money, he assigns it. And then it could be a trailer park. And it absolutely could, okay? Because it says and assigns. However, if he owns it and we sell it to Ed Zeman himself or Zeman Homes specifically, and the market goes bust, that's his problem. He can default, but we've got the money. So I say assigns has got to go. They split it from specific assignments to vague assign. That's a slide, that's a trick. I don't like it. My 2 cents worth, I want it gone. One other thing, another slide. And I asked them this specifically, they made it in the second change. I said, will you make it motorized luxury RVs? No, because they're a big fifth wheelers. Okay, I accepted that. Now, it's supposed to say, and this was their first letter in January, it was supposed to say 55 and over, age 50, luxury RV resort, high-end luxury RV resort is the exact language. It's gone from that to RV.
Yeah, to everybody online, it looks like we lost the Orchid Cove connection. Hopefully Cal's trying to reconnect. I'll keep the line open. Just got word from the people down there, and they're trying to reconnect.
Yeah, I get it. Developers have known that land's been back there and the land over here at Orchid Cove and the land over there for years. And nobody bought it. So no matter what they come in at, then we know where we're at. That's how I feel, board members. Right now, at this point, Ray Jensen is a no on Zeman Homes.
Some of your issues were already discussed with the board and voted on. And one was.
Under those pretenses.
One was the appraisal, and we voted. We didn't want to sour this deal, so we voted, if this deal doesn't happen, we will get it appraised. but because it wasn't, the appraisal is not a reason to stop with this.
Not saying that, I'm saying it's one of the features of it. I think we
But we
rushed the
already
judgment.
agreed after this, we would have it appraised.
Yeah,
So I don't think that's an issue.
we may be at after this, that's my point.
Well, we're gonna get it appraised. We
Yeah.
already voted on it.
That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
I,
And then length of stay. Wasn't it in there? The length of stay was 6 months
No,
maximum?
Russ said the county said that.
that's the county.
That's a county rule.
But that's not on trailers or park models, it's only on a specific vehicle. And the problem is RVs is now a very broad, so they can come back and say, well, those single wides are RVs, and we don't have a leg to stand on.
I thought in the LOI originally, we had in there no park models.
Yeah, originally we did, but read the PNS.
Well, in that case, you know, I think that a tightening up like you're suggesting is in order,
Are some of
because
those,
we know what we want
That's right.
and what we don't want.
Can I ask a question, to be honest? I was here at the town hall meeting, which was packed, just generated a lot of interest from both sides of the room. And I'll tell you from the audience, the mitigating issue, the biggest concern, not the only concern, but by far the biggest concern that everybody had was, which wasn't written into their, I guess, RFP or whatever the legal terminology was, their offer, tentative offer.
LOI, letter of intent.
Whatever it's at, which wasn't written in the LOI that Ray brought up, was there wasn't enough specificity. Was this going to be a luxury RV home over 55? That issue was brought up. The developers' representatives who were here very quickly addressed it, addressed everybody's concerns. They were surprised it was in there. We will fix that.
Exactly.
The audience was, to the CID committee, was fairly well pleased. Okay, we got to address that. I would say that that issue, if that isn't addressed, you're going to be revisiting the masses of people in here concerned.
And that's where I'm going with.
Again, I don't have a problem with tightening it up.
They're basically the same thing. I'm not sure they're the same
What's
quality
that?
as Zeman.
What do you mean? The backup officer for another.
Mobile RV park.
So that's it.
That's, I'm not sure the second one. I didn't discuss with them much because you had an offer. It's just a waste of time to.
Okay, but he said we can have open offers.
Well, let's see.
Zeman
What I would
didn't want
suggest is
that.
you're in negotiation now
Yeah.
with Zeman.
Right,
And let's see what they come back with.
right.
Tony's concerns was shared with them, and let's see what they respond.
Yeah, and what I suggest also, if we get a consensus of the board also, and I apologize, I think Dean Atchison, his book called President in Creation, had I been President in Creation, I would have had a different order of things, something like that. So I didn't know all the background, so I apologize to the extent that I missed any aspects of this agreement that were not consistent with what was presented, including the part about the park models and the nature of it versus just plain RV. And what I could do is take the comments from today, provide additional comments on the form of the contract, and say, listen, at the board discussion today, these are additional concerns, recognizing, that the initial blush review by me was just that, as counsel to the district. And one other aspect item I put in there, I left it blank, and this is to the, I think the board's comments and questions also, and also based upon the interview, the comments made in the interview, is that the board's approval, assuming this contract goes through, I think I would recommend it to any contract based upon the board sentiment, is that applications to any local government agencies or any entity for permit approval requires the previous review and approval by the board. So that the board can say, okay, this is what the layout's going to be like. You're the seller. And it's just like any other transaction where you're the seller. You want to have a quality development that doesn't adversely affect the district in the long run. So you could attach sort of a process in there for them to submit reviews. Many moons ago, when dinosaurs walked Europe, I worked for Westinghouse Communities in Naples, developed in Pelican Bay. And they had this process called preliminary design review. You could go through that process, so there'd be a concept, there'd be a concept plan, a preliminary design, And then they would go to the county and agencies, get the input from after Westinghouse. This is before the sale of the land. Or sometimes even after. But that was all required before they could develop. You could say that could be the process after the sale. In other words, do your due diligence, make sure there's no phase 1 or phase 2 environmental issues, make sure the zoning meets your requirements, but not require all the entitlements be in hand. So Florida, Cuyahoga County, before we close. That's one approach.
Can I ask you a
I
question?
mean, you have different approaches. You can stretch it out or make it shorter.
Is it common with these things for a developer to go to do their due diligence directly in a purchase and sale as opposed to in the letter of intent? Like in other words, letter of intent, we want 90 days to do due diligence first, then go to purchase and sale if it passes the due diligence.
There's all kinds of variations on that. I mean,
It looks like they lost power down there. I'm not sure if it's in Orchid Cove or if it's just Cal's computer, but I will keep the line open.
Listen, I live in Orchid Cove. I walk my dog 5 times a day. I look at that. I want to protect Orchid Cove. That's number one. Number two, I was for seaman. I've always said, what's the RP department? These impact, highest return, something. I'm not, when I don't like it, looks like a rat, smells like a rat, trying to mix. That's what it feels like. It smells like crap. If anybody, if they have a plan they've got, they promise, but they promise, they just broke their promise. I have to, all of us have to sit here, because every business with one, do we need that? No. So stop looking at the goddamn 2 million and stop worrying about what if the price is at 1 million. I'm gonna tell you, I sat right here in this room, and when we said we were giving $300 back to everybody, when we were talking about this front land over here a month ago, everybody said, "You don't care about $300. You care about $300." I agree with you, folks. The consensus, it's a limit, it's a success. All I'm saying is, what I'm getting at, and my biggest fear is, I think those Dixie single one, okay? Not happening.
You're in a position where you've got an offer, you're working with a developer now. If you want to terminate it, terminate it, and we'll get a marketer, but
I don't think we need to
we
terminate
need
it.
some direction.
I think we need to follow his guidelines for what he's done, and then what the response is to him is how we respond after that.
So in 1 month, let's have at the next meeting. But we have to have that because this is
We can work together. Okay. Get it.
Time limit, with some,
right. Get that. And
this is it. No more blips. This is it. Honeymoon's over. You get it right, but they're out.
As directed by the court, we will bring a proposal next meeting, and as a board, you will make that determination to proceed or to cancel. Okay, so we're ready to move on. The next is we had a request from the, I don't know if it's potential or actual purchasers of the property we called C4. I thought that was a witty description by Mr. Jensen, because I think a C4 is a explosive. So, but it's actually the zoning.
It's kind of the same thing.
Yeah, so anyhow, they've, I'm not sure if they're here, but they are here, and they wanted to talk to you about reducing the number of ERCs. Not to purchase. Oh, to reduce the, but you voted to purchase property for 500,000 and put down 10,000 as a deposit. That, but remember I sent an email out that everything had changed because you had a different purchaser, and all of the terms had changed. It wasn't the same deal you were looking at. It's a couple days later. It wasn't the same deal you were looking at.
We're not on it. We're on it.
Right, and right, we're on it.
Yeah.
Must be able to look at size of identify. Like, they have to do all through. Right. And you're actually an error field. There was no $10,000. No. That's what sorry. This is all I know. How I'm hearing someone else has ownership of that. They still have it, but and they made the deal, and the counter offer was for you to still buy it for 500,000 and then transfer parcel B to them. So we're at the point now where they are purchasing this and they would like their ERCs reduced because they don't have the same need as what the developer had when his ERC was established for those parcels. Yeah. And I think they still sell it to you for 500,000. Okay. I didn't think you did. So. The developer established the ERC. Yeah. Set up 20 based upon basic. But typically you have one ERC per acre or portion of it. And that's the same methodology that they follow throughout the development. That's 20 ERCs. And it represents $40,000. 20 general fund ERC. A year. 18, or 6 the others. So it represents 20 general fund ERC. Water sewer is less than that. Parcel. It's separate. Because they don't need them. An ERC is basically, the general fund is demand on the system as determined by the special assessment. The utility one is you're actually reserving capacity within the utility. Yeah. What exactly? That would be a good. Right. That's the question. Yeah. You know, I would need for that right. Yeah. If we don't have bank of quarterly ads, plus if we have enough. Right. Well, and then they have to buy it back. Is that you, sir? You have you, sir, man. Sorry. You're Steve and you're he's okay. Want to share? Yeah. Well. Thank you. So, $600,000. Got over $1 million in this piece of property on something that not happening. Well, I'm looking at this. Right. Right. So, and I can't find the methodology of where any of this came up. I've been trying to find the records that were all the stuff established. You know, how did you come up with this? Well, and I get no information from anybody. You know? So my question is like, for the property, if I buy this property, it's $3,500 a month on this. TCAM is saying that he did buy this $400,000 and spend another $600,000 special assessment in that time period. So in other words, if I buy it, these assessments are still on there. That means I have to be forced to build something on there. It's absolutely quick as I possibly can. Right. Okay. Well, the way I'm looking at it right now, I have no idea what's going to go on that spec. I'm putting on storage units inside. I have nice storage units. A few real big Class A, 50 feet, like 7 or 8. And then the rest of them will be smaller, like 20 by 30, 45, so that people can put full-size buildings each on the line. And they're probably another 12 to 14 of those. So we're talking 20, 21 total units of the whole thing. And they would be sold as condominiums, not as public storage units. Because we don't want, I'm trying to come up with a way to minimize the impact to the area. And I talk to the realtors, everybody says the same thing. They need storage all over. 3/4 of the people are out here living in condos, and a lot of them have single car garage. They have nowhere to go. So originally we wanted to put in boat storage and trailer storage. We're told we couldn't do that without rezoning. So then this, what they call man caves, is huge all over the country. People in the water. So that was my first thought. And I could do that on either side. If someone can do it, I can do it tomorrow. Right. That's right. But I'm looking at what are the other options that would be better on the west side, because it has 260 some feet of sea level. You know, that's, and the other thing I'm doing is C4 real estate doesn't exist anymore. There is such a limited amount of it that I really wouldn't want to jump into something and say, let's just throw up some storage units out there because I need to get the tax man. This way, if I wasn't paying all these ERCs, I would be forced to develop that. They might shift their company for a while. I don't know. But what we told us, when you come up with a plan, and you give us a plan, and we'll tell you what you need. Well, if I don't have an idea of what's going to go on there, do I still continue to pay $3,500 a month for something that may or may never be? Only taking that $3,500 a month. Because realistically, you talked about this before. You know, if there's something that you don't like, hey, what? I want to make a boatload of money. I would sell that land to somebody for gas station. I would hold it $20 a square foot. And you said that. Huh? You said and there's 143,000 acres or 500 acres over. I mean, so you're talking several $1 million. I don't know gas stations. Why? I don't know what else to go on and be forced into it.
Everything you said Makes sense. Everything you said is the reason land's still there for sale. You went into it deeper, which is, it amazes me no one else has. It just does. And you live there, is that correct? So I'm not either for or against, but you live there. They may not always live there, but Levy lives there too. Kiss lives there too. Terry lives there too. He lives there too. We burn you out across if you put something out there that just ruined your resale value. So I get that. And everything you said is exactly correct.
See, I need some help from you. You know, we're looking at this from my perspective. Looking at it, okay, some person at some point in this plan and said, you know, I can go to a hotel there someday. He said, okay, that's going to cost you, that's going to take 10 RCs or whatever you're thinking of on there. And that was built for decades. Way more than the land is even worth. How is that fair? You're taking more money away from a property than it's even worth.
I'd like to tell you something, and you can hold this close to your heart. When I first started looking at this whole mess, that is the exact reason that the 4 developers before you gave the older CID boards for refusing to ever pay CID fees. That exact reason. They were over-assessed property. And one of the guys, my opinion, was never going to pay anyway. It was a slippery slide. But one of the guys is very well liked in the city of Naples, highly regarded, super wealthy, and a straight up guy. All 4 of them said the same thing. And now you're number 5.
When we talk about that money that's away, that was it.
That is exactly right.
Let me ask you, how many ERCs do you want to give back to us?
Well, if I were, my literally idea of storage on our side, I was going to have one community bathroom. And I don't know if I'll have any bathrooms in those large units. I don't know if I put a bathroom in there or not, but I don't know what exactly you would need for ERC. I know it's typically like 150 gallons. You know, or a regular ERC is 4 bathrooms. You know, they're playing like 350 gallons. So it would probably 2, I would guess.
Yeah, it sounds like. What about on the west side?
Everybody else, you're assessing 4 per acre.
Okay.
So if there's 5 acres there, that's how you came up with the 20. And it wasn't someone just driving by saying, I might do this or that. It was the owner of the property that said, we want this is our property and this is what we plan on doing. And we want to make sure we got enough ERCs to provide the sewer, the water, and everything else.
And it was never revisited. So that's how it came up.
The entire district was looked at, and the ERCs assigned different parcels based upon that.
What kind of time, excuse me, what amount of a time frame would you be looking for before you made your decision about what you were going to be putting in there? In other words, would an exemption or a lowering of the ERCs based on a certain time frame, that if after X number you hadn't made a decision and just basically were holding the lot, that the ERCs would go back to the way they were, rather than, so that would give you time to work on what you want to put in there.
It's annual.
You're killing a piece of property that has 2 ERCs on it. That's the same thing. Why would you have to go back?
Well, the problem would be if you ran out, if we bought back the ERCs and sold them somewhere else.
Yeah.
Say we come and a large development comes back in here that wants to put homes or whatever, and we need more ERCs. So we sell them the ERCs that we've taken from you, and you don't develop it, but somebody else comes along and says to us, we want to put that's the thing in here, and it's going to need 40 ERCs or 20 ERCs. We don't have it to sell.
I see hurting business.
Yeah.
And on the converse side, if they were available, always have been, they're drying up, but if they were available, you could always buy some at any point. Right. As long as they're available, you're a smart guy, you get it. Sunstream's in the same bed as you, and you get it. Okay? Honestly, you hit the nail on the head. This mess has always been over assessed from the beginning, from day one when Hector was a puppy. And that's how we get in the hole we're in. Okay, we're just now coming out of it. You're exactly right. Smarter people than us said, I'm not paying. And they didn't. And the boards before us kept spending the money that was invisible. And it went in the hole. Okay, it made no sense to me, still doesn't. I hear what you're saying, but we're looking at $40,000 a year that we get now. Am I right? We get it? It would be
Work up plans with you, you say?
It's a board decision.
It's a board
No, it has to
decision.
be all of us. So we're fine taking up.
You're saying, well, we're gonna lose $40,000. I mean, you lose if you already lost because of this.
Well, we're not gonna lose 40 now because you own it.
Huh?
He doesn't own it yet. She's joking, but she's teasing.
What I'm getting is, it's unfair to try to take that out of this level. But
Are you willing to keep that land vacant? You're talking about doing the east side, right?
that's what my plan is today.
And that's got how many usable acres over there? What's
There's only about an acre and a half of it. You actually get right out here. The CID, electrical companies, the state have taken a third of that property. So, yeah, there's 9.8 ERCs on here, and it's an acre and a half. So the other side is 3 acres. And it's got
It's 6
9.8
and then
ERCs.
10. It averages out to 9.8.
But I mean, that property on that side is 6.
But the 3 acres with water access, you're not gonna do anything with right now?
I'm not gonna push myself into a box and say I'm there. I'm saying this today, I have no idea what might fit there. But what I do know is it would be the same as the east side, as I live in this community and I want something to go in there. That because these people have
It's seriously looking now. Tomorrow. I mean, same with me. I've been here 20 years. I could move next month. You know, there's nothing stopping. Yeah, no commitment, right?
Oh, but he
sells it.
Let's talk about the elephant in the room. This deal, we want to I don't want to be your, I don't want to be, we have to we have to we have to all over it. And we're not saying we have to come to that solution. That's going to be fun, but not insurmountable. So let's talk about the elephant in the room. Just please open your mind. I don't remember if you were here or not last meeting. Levy got on, and I don't know him. I don't know him. Levy got on the agenda the last time on the C4. What the hell is that? Okay. Then he's here. At the meeting, it's over there. Blindsided. Okay. Well, if you don't buy this land, $500,000, there's going to be a pig farm. There's going to be a 7-Eleven gas station. There's going to be homeless shelters. Oh, you're okay with it? So that's what we got hit with. Never saw that coming. Just follow. Never saw that coming. Okay. We had to stay 2 extra hours which we did. And what it boiled down to, which I was telling her, was we were guaranteeing Lee $10,000 upfront money that he was going to close by July 1st. That's what we were guaranteed. So we voted $10,000 after 5 hours after seeing their contract, which wasn't correct. Then we would roll the dice with the people's money so that we had some breathing room to find out what the hell we're going to do. Then, the next day, I find out if he didn't put the check down. So in theory, he was out of contract because that midnight that night was the end of his due diligence, 20 days. Somehow, he didn't know that either. He thought he had 45 days, but that's another story. So then it went from his realtor fronting the check on his behalf to you cutting a check, and the story changing. I'm not saying from you. The story changing from you were going to buy the land and you wanted to put a main in that nobody knew what it was on the east side. You were going to put a buffer in to protect Delamar's North building, and you were going to talk to us about donating the seawall and the street frontage in return for a tax break. That's the rumor. Not saying it's true. So I'm saying, okay, that's great. That's where it left off. Last thing we did, you're buying it. You have the 10,000 down. We're not in it. You're closing July 1st, and you're marking off the east side, whatever you're going to do. And that brings us to here today.
If he's going to build, let's say, 7 to 8 weeks, he only wants one bed. Am I correct in thinking this is all one building?
No, 3 different buildings. One building costs haven't decided whether or not building that out. At this point, we've got one cent.
So at this point, because you had one centrally located bathroom, you want us to take back some of the ERCs?
Yeah. Well, I think, yeah. But yeah, parcel A too. Yeah, well, that would still be, it's.
Well, what do you want? What about parcel A, the big piece? What do you want us to do anything with those years? B, I'm sorry. What?
To what?
Okay.
So you're talking 2 on each parcel?
You should, that's below the standard that right now, your methodology is 4 ERCs per acre. I've never seen anywhere in the state less than 1 ERC per acre. You need to be on any land. And then, you know, or 1 ERC per a portion of an acre, but it's based on acreage, 1 ERC per acre.
That's why I think the left side has to be stay with the same thing. Usable and 6. I think you have the price of your unit. And whether they want the bathroom or not, and the price. Let me ask you a question. Let me ask you a question. I mean, everybody's saying it. Here's the whole thing. Let me ask you a question. In the room, full disclosure. Only wants 2 ERC. Possibly.
Well,
so doesn't that protect the neighborhood?
You need to be, this is a decision that's not just on his parcel. This is a decision community-wide. And right now, you've got an assessment methodology that's based on 4 ERCs per acre. You want to change that, that's fine, but you're changing it for the entire community.
not just, yeah, you can't handle individual requests like this on an individual basis.
Parcel across
Mhm. Exactly.
And
Not under 50 acres. That's because they've got a plan. They know what they need.
what if it's somebody else?
Well, if it's somebody else, then it could change. Yeah, you could be reducing it there too.
Which reduces the lives.
But keep in mind also, Terry, I think you were asking a question about number of buildings and so forth. We determine ERCs based, this man does that. And he sits and determines, it's not a bargaining point. It's what is needed for that to go.
Up here.
Yeah.
We were talking storage units and possibly man cave. They're two different things in a way. That's how they
Space upstairs.
again, it's set up for more frequent use versus a storage unit where you can come and dump stuff and get retrieve it when you need it. We're close to man cave, something where somebody comes and spends time.
Yeah, I have acres that it's grown so much.
And again, the assessment process is set upon to get 4 units per acre, but it's also set upon what's the probable use of that property. So C4, the zoning has lots of problems. I can just give you some real, for instance, for instance, 20 single family homes, 20 ERCs. Multifamily, that's 25 units. All conceivable. Restaurant, that's a 100-seat restaurant. Small doctor's dental office, that would probably be about 1 ERC. Beauty shop, 1 ERC with 4 seats. Service station, like we mentioned, one with 5 water closets and 6 water pots or whatever, that's going to be about 7 ERCs. So you get an idea of what to put on those properties and how they would put those ERCs pretty quickly.
The problem's gonna be, this is the beauty of discussion. Problem's gonna be, if you make an exception, you got to make exception legally or whatever, and make that appointment. That's the problem.
Well, and you don't want to make an exception on an individual request.
Right.
You look at your total assessment methodology and you come up with a program that you can live with for everyone. And like I say, 1 ERC per acre is acceptable. Like,
There's no real provisions, my understanding, with the assessment process and with the way your policy is set up, that you are under no obligation to accept the ERC. You're assigned to the property.
you could, that's just what I've seen. 4 is 4 right now, but throughout the state, nobody has less than 1 per ERC.
But people have the ability to do transfers from one parcel to another,
Sell them.
they can sell them, but you have no obligation to sell them back.
So what if we decided?
Based on the 50 acres, based on a 300 unit development at 0.6, 0.4, 0.4, it is 0.4, then it's 120.
Plus the bills are the same. Like,
In which case, you have.
We hadn't gotten that point. They haven't laid out any plans, but
so we've
that's.
only done the ERCs, RVs.
But they haven't been assigned yet. And once you have an agreement and they submit plans, then we would do it. We know for the pads, they need 120 ERC. But we're not to a point to say that it's 120 or 220. We don't know.
But it's 50 acres.
That's it.
Based on, what you're saying.
During the original assignment, it would have been assigned to 200.
Right.
But because you want to acquire that property, basically whatever ERCs are there, or have at your disposal.
Right. It's whatever was assigned to it. I don't know if it was what the calculation was. It probably was about 4 per acre.
No. We're talking about this. Good question. From what I'm hearing, 4 per acre. That's just the rule of thumb. So
Yeah, I don't know if it says.
Way back when they were first developed, there were no hard and fast plans. Those were just tracks over there. And then, of course, as the developer did different things with those tracks, he used some ERCs here on this portion of it. He had this many ERCs left, so he dumped this over here and dumped this here. And then eventually those ERCs went down on the track. I'm sorry. I really have to evaluate it based upon restroom facilities, hose bibs. But we'd also look at hose bibs. If you have a storage there, conceivably you might have hose bibs to wash down the boat, different things like that. It's just we really do need to get a plan before we can make that determination.
it's not so much what you put on it, it's what it's designated. So before you put a car wash on it or anything, it's the guy coming up 40 RCs per acre. And that's the way it's been assuming through the whole place. So the minute we make an exception to that, or anybody, we're vulnerable to make exceptions to everybody. And that would be suicide.
And just, excuse me, on part of RV, I do know some RV storage areas where they have sewer connections over each of the RV sites, so that someone can come and dump once they come home. And that, knowing that, if you gave a reduction to ERC, then that, that's what that. How much we have to, as far as sewer requirement. So,
right.
But why would we defer it?
that's the question. That's the point we're saying. You don't, without a plan, and I understand where you're coming from, but we're saying without a plan, we can't determine, well, only the pool.
And your ERCs, there's actually 2 ERCs. You've got the general fund, and on those properties, now the developer split them up, but there's 10 and 10 on A and B. And then the wastewater, there's 6 and 6. So when you take the rate of $395 for general fund and $1,700 for water sewer, it breaks out to the 9.8, once you average it out. That's with just the way the developer set it up.
They go back to, and I don't know the history 100% here, and maybe go back to how that was originally planned or shown and then assessed. And then what happened was, as things got platted, then they had to be divided up, and the individual developer did that on that property, which is different.
Right. And that's exactly what it is.
Yeah, what is being developed, you might come in with something, but then when they true up, then you're going to assess it at exactly what it is. Right. Now, and you can see other examples. Ray had just contacted me about the Lake Lincoln property here. And there is 10 ERCs for general fund, but there's 1.8 for water sewer. And that's all they had, which that made no sense because they were, well, the general fund, your water sewer is limited. Why? Because that's all that they had. They had to buy more if they were going to build it.
But if you put building on it, it's going to be at least two.
Sure, but they didn't. They weren't paying for it. They weren't going to pay for it.
And at the time too, with clubhouse here and the different other buildings, it all got figured out how many ERCs this needed for present development, and what they had wasn't enough to keep building other buildings.
So they ran out by the time they got to phase 3.
So on his behalf, they are under the gun to close the Linden line from. That's his deal. Last I knew. I don't know the answer or anything I can assist him. I just don't see that we can by then, based on if that's stone or correct.
You could change, the philosophy to anywhere from 4 to 1.
But then you have to change it for everybody.
Yes.
Or you have to do that change.
Which is what we've always done. When we did the marina docks, the engineer came in with a recommendation on, what the load is, what's the sewer, what's the water, and so that's the way they've always done it. Yeah.
So we're telling them. Can we change?
That's
Even if
right
it
now.
does,
Yeah.
no way. Certainly no way we can give him an answer.
And what we would,
We have one
even
meeting.
unless we get this plan, if we know how many ERCs we got, those would be assigned to that building permit.
Based upon everything.
Based upon that plan, but the excess, if there is excess, so we're paying that. Or could be sold, transferred.
So the excess.
Whoever would be interested in buying it.
So not so us.
Correct.
That's what it sounds like. Well, honestly, it's up to Dave.
Dave would determine what the water sewer need is, but I mean, the general fund is what it is now.
Doesn't have a use yet. Or need.
Well, and he has ERCs to that property. Now, if you want to change that, come up with a policy or a program, and we can change it. But when he gets ready to take out a building permit, if he doesn't have enough ERCs, then he's got to buy them.
And it also affects your bottom line too, is if we still need to raise another $1 billion to take care of what we need on the water, wastewater, and so forth, now you got a smaller group to take that money from, so keep that in mind.
And there will be a lot of vacant property coming and saying, we want to give up some ERCs too. Because basically that's what you're doing. You're turning back ERC. But the general fund ERC should never be reduced. That's based on acreage, that's based on what's there or not, but that's your streets, that's your irrigation, your mosquito spraying, all of that.
So, but the general fund ERC, a lot or less.
Yes, $395 per.
Okay, so in a nutshell, what are we telling them?
Just the wild card, if he's only planning on developing one parcel, reach agreement on how many ERCs that's gonna use. I could see conceivably transferring it to the other parcels, he owns that property, and then if he wants to donate that property or do whatever, you can't make the ERCs disappear.
Right, that's.
No, exactly.
Or if he's selling to somebody else.
It's a good idea.
How's that sound? The only way you can. So the board would act. That you don't care about. You know, I wondered that same exact thing.
Or the board could decide to buy that property.
If you want, you can consider whatever he wants to submit at maybe the next meeting. But it doesn't sound like right now anyone's interested in making a decision.
Yeah, I mean, being honest, does that use? Get what he's saying. It's how land's been for sale a long time. That's why. So well, I guess.
Say that again. I lost it. Right. Right.
Because the next one is not fair. Because we need it. Well, the need is the fact that we provide service. Right. And without money, we don't provide service. And that is the important part.
And it's basically a reservation fee that potentially that property could use the full amount of ERCs that's got allocated. And we've built water and wastewater facilities to meet those needs. And we have to maintain those and keep them in operational condition for if and when that property ever does build out to its maximum potential.
Do we have any loan or bond companies that requires to be
Here is thinking outside the box, an idea you might consider that Steve and Joe would consider is you don't affect the general fund. They stay at 20. That's roughly 3,900. Let's see, 20 times 395. No, it's about 7,000. And then reduce the sewer water based on, a one bathroom, whatever that Dave could come up with. And for the sewer water, that would probably cut it in half. And then if they need more water sewer, I mean, the general fund is the general fund. That maintains the community. They need more water sewer when he has a development. If you don't have them, then they can't develop that property.
They would in fact donate those ERCs to the CID. We would not
They come
purchase them.
back, right. You wouldn't purchase them. They'd just be dropped.
It's up to you to accept them or not.
What do they do to those other properties?
Well, the other, I think we can use that same, because you're using the existing general fund ERCs. The water sewer, it's just making more available. I mean, nobody can use that as a excuse to say, well, you did it for them, you need to do it for us.
But you are giving back that money we need to reserve for future operation and maintenance of the base facility.
Exactly. And we've already allocated.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And that's the problem.
You based your budget off of 800 or 900 ERCs
Right.
for sewer water. So,
It's like buying a building with 20
I mean,
toilets.
you are opening the door. You're exactly right. You're opening the door where somebody on the southwest commercial property come back and say, we don't need that. I mean, the general fund ERC, those are established and you need to stay with them. But the water sewer, they can come back and say, well, we don't need them and we want to turn them back in. And they've been paying.
And at one time they were looking to buy more.
By that pond there? Where's that?
Is that our land?
Where's that?
I don't think it's.
Oh, that's Orchid
That's
Cove's
Orchid Cove
drainage
land.
pond.
Yeah, we're paying on it.
Yes.
Orchid Cove pays that separately. It's not on that because that's separated by a road, but just envision that the road's not there. That's part of this. And so we are paying all the ERCs on this. In fact, when he mentioned phase 2 and phase 3, this land over here went into default by a developer, and these vacant lots over here, this isn't finished, went into default by a developer, and that's all been accruing, and the community's been taking the loss, and that's the problem.
I understand this correctly, that over there, across the road, is paying as for
That's, yes, basically because it's part of the community. It's part of the
community.
part of the water management
They
system.
might have fixed those ERCs over here in the building.
But by the same token, we can't build anything over there. Because well, but that's conservation land.
So it'd be like
We can't
common
touch.
ground.
Well, but there's land over there that's clear, we still can't build. That's the problem. See, it's because Orchid Cove is different. Orchid Cove's all one big. It's not like across the street. The problem with across the street is there's no master association, really. It's a bunch of different things. If over there, this came much later. If over here, this was planned, it has a board of directors, just one, for 148 units. So that's the difference. This came years and years later. Over there is a circus. You've got year-round homes, you've got condos, you have motel units, you have hotel units, you have boat slips, and it's a zoo. And they're never going to always agree because they're all built at different times. And that's the problem. Sunstream that owns the hotel, and the land west has plans for 2 towers. I think they're 8 or 10-story towers that are never going to be built. And that's been for sale in the hotel since 2006. Just got the hotel involved.
Well, I don't know if they would be interested.
Well, they can't develop right now. Why would
Right.
they want ERCs?
Right, and it's for sale. They want-
Make their money.
So I think what you're saying is correct. Kind of tied into it.
Okay. Is there any motions or anything else? So moving on. That next under new business would be the go to meetings discussions, and I know Zoom's been mentioned. There's absolutely no difference between.
No, you're right. I'd like to make, I'm going to brought Zoom up. They used it for the Orchid Cove meeting the other night. It was horrendous.
Well, the complaints that we hear is because of equipment. It's a great speaker. We did a lot of research and it works for the board. But when you've got people sitting way in the back,
Right.
nobody can hear them. So we could, you'd have to buy a sound system. And what we've looked at get you as cheap as $2,500 to $3,000.
Or you'd have to put a microphone up there and have every individual come up and take turns.
Take turns at a podium.
No, that's right.
Yeah, that's about all you can do, but this will pick up the board, when I remember to bring the power. Yeah, we lost it. They can still hear us, but we just can't see them. So, okay, so is there anything anyone wants to do? Okay, and plus the Zoom is to get a comparable system. We provide you the GoToMeeting, all of our clients. And, but a Zoom is per site, is $300. And
I'm the same, just while we're there. How many people on this were on there?
4, 5.
Okay. What I had said to you, just board members, we can only talk to each other here, okay? There's only 4 or 5 people on there every time. And after the last meeting, when we got rushed on this land thing, there were 98 comments on Nextdoor, and they weren't good about us. They were really bad. And most of it was from 4 people, and most of it was wrong, and most of it was because nobody waited the last 2 hours because they were too busy. My point being, that's suicide. Now, did we just put that in for COVID, which is now behind us?
Yes and no.
It's a good option.
We put it in for COVID, and then to be able to offer that opportunity, we kept it.
But if only 3 or 4 people are on it every month.
We could drop it. I mean, I've got one staff member that's on every call, and you know he's got better things to do. So we can, if you want to drop it, we'll drop it.
But I think we're doing it.
But I guess what I'm saying is, it's last month at least it was bad.
Yeah.
But what's it costing?
It's not what's costing us, it's what people are saying on Nextdoor. They're not getting the right story. And they're just saying it. You can't if they're not on there. What I'm getting at is everybody that came to the meeting, they all got it right.
The ones who were on Nextdoor, were they part of the video?
Yeah, 4 of them, and then that spreads out.
But even if they're in the audience, it's what they hear, how they hear.
But nobody that was here, the problem.
Okay, so the question, it sounds like you don't want to invest in a sound system, no Zoom. Do you want us to look at maybe a microphone or something?
She's concerned that I am doing about transparency. You need to have something where people can hear the people in the back of the room and people can hear us. And I'm all for transparency, and that's fine. But I also want people listening in to get it and don't just listen to part of the story.
I appreciate it.
So if you'd like us to continue, with the GoToMeeting online, okay. I see a lot of heads going up and down. Do you want us to look at a sound system that, you know, maybe it's just one mic there and 1 or 2 in front of the board members? Yeah, okay, all right, we'll do that then.
Cal, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
That's exactly what's in the packet. That's exactly what's in the packet. The $3,000 is the next tier up of just a couple of extra microphones.
Okay, so yeah, there's one in there for $3,000 that would put, it's in the packet. But that's forever.
As long as everybody can hear it, it's not this perfect. If we get crucified, that's fine with me.
Okay.
So if the board is in agreement, do you want to approve a sound system not to exceed 3,000 and we'll get the best we can?
Sound system. Max $1,000, not to exceed $1,000. Is it a sound system?
It's a system, it's upgraded, I mean, it's not like the guy you brought in for the workshop. Yeah, no, it's nothing like that. And Ms. Holloway seconded it. Okay, any discussion? All in favor?
Al,
Yes, sir.
I just wanted to say that it's basically the audio microphone speaker that you have now, but it's 3 to 4 of them that are daisy chained. That's precisely what that $2,500 will get you.
Are they Wi-Fi? Have to be plugged in.
They are Wi-Fi, but Wi-Fi is a bad idea. So we can, I mean, they can be Wi-Fi, they can be Bluetooth, but they should be plugged in. They should be wired in, and we have to have LAN power to run them.
Chris is the sound guy. He'll make sure they work. That's one of his degrees. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Right.
It's for the.
Right. But they can hear through each other.
Yes.
So we're gonna set.
You want someone inside the room, to be able to, us to be able to see it so that they not just.
People within the room here can't hear us.
Yeah.
Well, but that's what I'm gonna say. Okay.
Okay, fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, we'll make it work and, okay. You have a resident that requested, and you had a copy of it in your packet. He requested the ability to plant 3 trees, palms, royal palms, on a lot that he's developing. And yeah, it is. Yeah. So it's in the road right away, and I told him he had to have your approval. Well, yeah. Just like you trade, they become part of your street tree inventory, and you maintain them to the same standards you would for any of the others. Yeah.
We do have an existing on that side, and it's just a little bit off the sidewalk. We also have valley gutter that start right area behind that area. So we've got those 2 things. That's palms. Yeah, they go everywhere. The palms aren't as bad as some trees, but yeah, would be the other issue is only have valley gutter. And sorts of spring stuff like that. Typically, area have upright curve. You want to try to. But again, no, it's a valley curve. It's a valley gutter. Then it takes that curve or the front, and the analysis right from the home for recovery takes the off the road.
So would you recommend against it?
I would recommend against it. What's the plan? Palms, on the side of the road.
Side.
Yeah, it's the other side of the sidewalk.
That's his responsibility. But
for landscape maintenance. There's, you said there's a grant sign? Yeah, there's a very grant sign. It's probably, but it's still there. Plus, you got maintenance there. Coming from the original things, someplace in the house. Just pick up the future for maintenance of utilities. Yeah, you'll send me an email. I'll send you an email. Okay. It's rather, there's some places that we do have projects like that in the right of way, but those are pre-existing. Really don't want to encourage.
So it's, because it is a request of the board, could we get a motion to reject based on the engineer's, finding? Okay, discussion? All in favor? I don't either, so. I'm concerned about the. Typically, anything that's the right of way, breakaway, that if you did it in breaks away, fender or whatever car. It wasn't also that seat fund done. When it causes that sidewalk to upheave, also the problem. I've heard that already. That somebody engaged like some private development, some of the roadways that have to be reformed. Yes, sir. Just request a proposal. We can put together a proposal.
I said with
But we don't know what the development. He may be wire roads or whatever. If he is developing, take them up. Yeah, it depends on traffic impact too. He may be out to do other. Yeah. Would. We'll get a landscape architect that will basically lay out a plan, have total lay out a plan, and then present it to you. Probably a little bit premature right now. Oh, yeah, yeah. So, and we should know where Siemens at next month. Yeah, and developer may want to take all of that to and help develop that plan. Yeah. Is this our, yeah. Okay, supervisor's request. Yep. Okay, anyone else?
Right. No. Or- I don't know, but I think.
Here's the concept. The concept is, I asked all Collier County to pay more, so we pay less.
Just quick, okay.
That's the problem.
I get it. We also have $2.5 million.
Also, some total, fund our budget. So they're not paying.
I just didn't know if there's any, see, you guys, city, city, not that. But I want to get our. So how do we get that done?
Brought that up. And part of the problem, that's, they had like 10 and materialized the way it was supposed to count. So they still don't know. Still.
Oh, yeah, because these guys were selling us bill of goods that get rid of administrators and reduce the overhead.
Consolidation.
That's a fact. It's that. Oh, right.
The way they want it.
Part of it is the funding, like you said, most of that don't pay into the taxes and acts. But the county commissioners, don't. And we, like, third large, the entire state, I said, it's supposed to, but the OT, told my, and it goes, yeah, they got turned over there.
Well, I talked to Castro. Yes. Nothing. I do it.
But you know, the bottom line is, let's say,
McDaniel's and him.
everybody else is 1.5.
Again, it's
To give it a vote.
something that the city.
568. 600, whatever.
That's easy.
You've heard of Todd, right? I know. Well, I confronted him with that, but I didn't need to know everything. Now that he was the commissioner, I didn't need to know what he did the past 5 minutes. Because I went to a meeting.
Anything else from the supervisor? Okay, audience comment, any audience comment? Okay, ready for a motion to adjourn?
I said,